Seated. We back on the record in State versus Weier, same appearances, same case number. Prepared to proceed with testimony.
Thank you, Your Honor. Our first witness will be Mr. Weier. We have two witnesses that will also be appearing that will be relatively brief that are juvenile witnesses. And I'm informing the court of that so that appropriate arrangements can be made with the camera. I don't think it would be appropriate for them to be displayed. They've also asked if it would be possible if we could just use their initials. So I would ask the court to allow us to do that.
What's the state's view?
No objection.
All right. The order that's outstanding with regard to any individual who may be subject to Chapter 938 would be that they faces not be photographed. So that would cover juveniles, and they can. I'd want their parties know. The state knows who the witnesses are, the juvenile witnesses.
Yes.
Okay, I'll ask you to, you can file the names with the court, and then we'll proceed. They can identify themselves using initials.
I believe they're on our witness list. It would be KN and SN.
I see, same family?
Yes.
All right, very good. Thank you. Then I think we're prepared to bring the jury in.
Their mother will also be testifying. May we refer to her by her last initial? Again, we're trying to protect the juvenile's identity when they're...
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Please be seated. We'll note we're on the record in State versus Weier. Jury's back in the courtroom. Parties are prepared to call their first witness.
We would call William Weier.
Okay, sir, if you'd come forward.
All right, to pass out the note taking?
Yes. At this point, the court is, and sir, just come on and just stand over here for a second. To the jury, we're passing out the notebooks. They each have a number that will be your assigned notebook. Keep track of the number. During breaks and over evening, we'll collect the notebooks and keep them secure and confidential. However, you can make any notes you'd like during the course of the trial. They're always confidential for use only, and recall from the prior instruction at the end of the trial, they'll be destroyed. So with that, sir, step up. Raise your right hand. Clerk will swear you in.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thank you. Please be seated. Then pull up to the microphone, and that's the bar with the red light, and then state your full name and spell your last name.
Name is William Weier, W-E-I-E-R.
All right, thank you. Attorney McMahon.
Thank you. Mr. Weier, you are the father of Anissa Weier,
Correct.
and I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about the time for your family before May 31st of 2014. If you would like, I can kind of tell you where I'm starting. Where did Anissa go to grade school?
At Prairie Elementary.
And who were her teachers?
She had a number of teachers. I know for her 4th and 5th grade years, her teacher was the same, was Mr. Thomas Haynes.
And when Anissa was in grade school, what sort of information did you receive from the school about Anissa?
Nothing more than what was received at parent-teacher conferences. Anissa's grades were good. She was not disruptive in class. Several of her teachers would remark on how much nonfiction she would read, lots of things about animals and their habitats.
And when you say lots of things about animals, what sort of things?
She would read books on horses, the kinds of things that, horses would do in the wild, the kinds of things that horses that were, say, being trained for a rodeo or even equestrian shows, the kinds of things that horses would do. She would read a lot about domestic cats, a lot about big cats and their habitats. Certain things about dogs, although she never could tell me why a dog makes a circle before it lays down, but she would read about things like this.
Okay. And While she was at Prairie Middle School, or Prairie Grade School, excuse me, did there come a time when there was some difficulty in the home?
Yes. Anissa's mother and I are divorced. We were going through the divorce at the time that Anissa was at elementary school at Prairie.
When did the children find out about the divorce?
I don't remember the exact date. I do remember sitting them down, both Christy and I, at the same time, and we explained to them what was happening. We did not go into the details about why, but we did offer to both Anissa and her younger brother that if there was someone they wanted to talk to and it wasn't somebody in the family, if they wanted to talk to a school social worker or a counselor or anybody, all they needed to do was let us know, and we would make sure that happened. We wanted every opportunity for them to know that the reason for the divorce was not because of the children.
Okay. And I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit B.
Yes,
When you referred to the children, this is a picture of your children, correct?
all four.
Okay. Now, the little guy there is Annissa's younger brother.
Anissa's younger brother, yes,
And at the time of your divorce, he would have been older than this, correct?
definitely.
He would have been about how old?
7?
Okay. And the young lady with the pink bow, that would be Ani?
That is Anissa.
And behind, who do we have?
Behind, we have Anissa's older siblings, one brother, one sister.
And were they living full-time with you at the time of your divorce?
Not full-time, no.
And that's, where else were they living?
I have, or had, she has since passed away, a first wife. The older children in the picture are from my first marriage. They were spending most of their time with their mother in Milwaukee County.
And if I push this button again, will that make it go? This is what happens when an old person tries to do AV. Okay. So your older children were living with their mother in Milwaukee County.
Yes.
And what was going on at that point in time?
Her health was failing. She had been diagnosed while we were in high school with a blood disorder called myelofibrosis. She grew up with this. I knew she had it when we started dating. I knew, obviously, she had it when we were married, and her doctors told her she would be a lucky woman to live past her 40th birthday.
And did there come a time when she passed on?
Yes, February 27th, 2014, 1 week before her 41st birthday.
And at that time, were both of your older children still living in her home?
Yes.
And how were they doing?
They were noticeably upset. I think my oldest daughter, more so than my oldest son. She was having trouble coping with her mother's health leading up to the date of her passing, and then afterwards she was having trouble dealing with her passing. She spent a lot of time out of school caring for her mother, which I disagreed with, but they wouldn't listen to me. So she was struggling with her own issues. She never saw a professional for it, although she will tell you that she was struggling with depression at the time.
And she would come and visit at your home on occasion?
Yes.
And what was Ani's relationship with her?
I would call it good, but considering the fact that they spent the majority of their time in a separate home, I think Anissa's relationship with her older brother and sister wasn't as tight as it could have been. You know, there's a certain sense of familiarity that you have with your siblings when you all live in the same home. Anissa did not have that because of the custody order, and you know, at that time, My oldest son had also come to me and told me that he would like to spend the majority of his time at his mother's house in Milwaukee. So, I mean, I didn't argue with him. I knew what was happening. So, Anissa was deprived some of the bonding that she should have had with her older siblings.
But she was excited when they would come to visit?
She was excited when they'd come to visit. And I know, you know, she always wanted the opportunity to especially hang out with her older sister, you know.
Was it fair to say that you had some significant concerns about your older daughter's health at that time?
Objection is not relevant for this trial, Your Honor.
And what is the relevance?
It goes to the entire res gestae that this child was in at the time. It goes to whether or not, within the scope of a delusional disorder, the person had other persons to turn to for a reality check.
Overrule the objection.
Judge, I just want to, maybe I misunderstood the question. I thought the question was, what was his opinion of his older daughter's mental condition? I don't see how that's relevant.
Because apparently...
Well, you already made your statement. I ruled.
Okay.
Overrule
Thank
the
you.
objection.
Did you have concerns at that point in time about the well-being of your older daughter?
Absolutely.
And were you focused on making sure that she kept body and soul together?
You know, well, I mean, you have 4 children, and anybody that has more than 1 children realizes that it is hard to focus predominantly on any one of them at any given time. My concerns at the time with my oldest daughter were making sure that she stays as balanced as she could, knowing the inevitable outcome of her mother's health. And, you know, by the same token, the other 3 children need to realize that we are fully aware of what's going on with this woman's health. So as much as you try not to talk about it, everybody is aware of, you know, we try to keep the kids happy. Maybe take her mind off of it for a while. You know, give her something else to think about. You know, remove her from that situation for a weekend if at all possible.
And while you don't give a lot of details to the other children, Anissa was aware that this was going on
Definitely,
and that Sarah was very sad.
yes.
And you basically were trying to spread yourself between the 4 kids,
Absolutely.
but keeping a close focus on the 2 who just lost their mom.
Objection, she's leading the witness, Your Honor.
Sustained. You can rephrase the question.
Did there come a time when it was decided your older children would move back into the house?
After their mother's passing, yes.
And did that happen immediately in February?
It did not. My oldest son was already out of high school, and he was working. Sarah, since you've said her name, was still in high school. She had yet to complete her senior year, and we had conversations about, you know, should she come to school in Waukesha? She was already enrolled in school through the choice program to stay in Milwaukee County. So we agreed that that's where she would stay and for her senior year, but upon completion of her junior year, she comes out and lives with me in Waukesha.
And when did that occur?
The actual date of the move,
Yes.
May 31st, 2014.
So obviously, we all know that something else happened on May 31st, 2014.
Yes.
When Anissa went to the sleepover at the Geyser home, do you remember what day that was?
That was May 30th, 2014.
Okay. And so she went there, and you began helping your older children move into your home.
Yes, early that morning, myself, Anissa's mother, and one friend of ours, along with our youngest son, went down to Milwaukee to start bringing the older kids' items out to Waukesha.
Okay. Now, backing up a little bit, Anissa changed, she finished grade school, right?
Yes,
And she then began middle school.
Correct.
Where'd she go?
She went to Horning.
And Horning was in a different school district, correct?
Horning was in the district that our address fell into. Anissa had gone to Prairie Elementary because we had her transferred in there. She had family members that were going there that recommended the school. When everybody from Anissa's class, if you want to call it, graduated from 5th grade, the bulk of Anissa's friends moved to Les Paul Middle School. Anissa was the only one from her class that moved on to Horning.
Okay. And when she went to Horning, what steps did you take to check out the school?
I mean, Anissa was upset towards the end of her time at Prairie, simply because she thought she was never going to see any of her friends again. Well, you know, I sat her down, we talked, you know, of course, there's always telephones. You know, things can be set up, but we went and we started to check out Horning. We were put onto a program at the school called the Flight Academy, which was an advanced learning class, one big room. There were children from all 3 grades, 6, 7, and 8 in that room, and they're all working on projects together. We went, we looked into that. The school, Horning School, was interested in having Anissa participate in this program. That was one of our main deciding factors for sending her to Horning. We agreed, Anissa and I, that we would go check it out, get her opinions, see what she thinks about it. Upon doing that, she liked the program. She liked the idea of being in a community setting, learning along with children, you know, above her grade and eventually below her grade. She thought that was a very exciting opportunity that she could have.
Okay. And your experience of your daughter, was she a shrinking violet?
Shrinking violet meaning?
Really shy, quiet?
Nah, not at Prairie, I would say no. Not my perceptions anyway.
Okay. And when she needed or wanted something in the home, was she able to let you know as far as you knew?
Yes.
When you and Mrs. Weier divorced, did you notice Anissa's behavior being any different?
I would say she was quieter, you know, not to the point where we saw any major concerns, but there were things that she would ask for, and, you know, we'd have to say, you know, no, not right now. She wouldn't argue about it. She would just take that as, okay, I asked, they said no, you know, she would go about her business.
Was that how she behaved before the divorce?
I would have to say no. You know, Anissa and, I mean, really none of the kids were overly pushy about something that they needed or wanted. However, they are very good at trying to pose an argument. So, case in point, Anissa came home from school one day with a pamphlet for a dance class that she was interested in. Now, the downfall to this was that the opening class was the same day she brought the pamphlet home, and I didn't have the money to front for the admission of the class. So I told her flat out, I said, you know, we can look at dance classes, absolutely. I don't have the funds or the time right now to look at this particular dance class. Prior to the divorce, Anissa would have said, you know, yes, but why can't we? After the divorce, Anissa just said, okay, I understand, and left the room.
Did you find her wanting to continue on that interest in dance?
She would spend some time in her bedroom looking up YouTube videos about different dance steps, and she was aware of some of the criteria that some of these classes would ask for prior to entry, like upon entry you should know how to do this. So she would spend time in her bedroom practicing different spins, things along those lines.
So she was trying to teach herself?
Yes.
Did you find out eventually that Anissa had been referred for some help at her grade school?
The only help that I was aware Anissa ever received at grade school was during the divorce. She had a 6-week session. As I understand it, it was about kids from divorced families. It was run, I don't know if the woman is a social worker at the school or a teacher. I believe her last name is Wagner. Can't recall her first name.
Did you ask to have her put in that?
Pardon me?
Did you ask to have her put in that class?
I did not.
How did she get into it?
It was my understanding she did that of her own volition.
And how did you find out about it?
My ex-wife told me, Anissa's mother.
Okay. Mr. Weier, during the time that Anissa was attending Horning, did you have occasion to meet her friend, Morgan Geyser?
Yes.
And tell me about that.
Where the school is in relationship to our address, Anissa had to take the bus to school. Anissa was originally friends with 3 girls on the bus, none of them being Morgan Geyser. And there was an episode to where Anissa was trying to do her homework one day, and these girls kept sending text messages to her left and right. I finally grabbed Anissa's phone and I responded. I said, "This is Anissa's father. Please allow her to finish her homework. She will get back to you when she's done." Somehow that turned into these 3 girls ridiculing Anissa because Daddy had to step in for her. So Anissa cut ties with those girls and started riding the bus with Morgan, talking to Morgan on the bus stop. So my first experience with Morgan was dropping Anissa off at the bus stop and seeing Morgan come down the hill to the bus stop.
And what did you notice about Morgan?
My initial perceptions of Morgan was that she was curious. She came to the bus stop one day wearing a mask, seemed to be a Halloween mask of one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There was one occasion where she came to the bus stop wearing some falcon ears from Star Trek.
And that seemed unusual?
Well, I mean, for a 12-year-old, it just seemed like she was goofing around, but I had asked Anissa, I said, what's the story here? She says, "Oh, that's just Morgan."
Okay. And did you have the occasion to meet Morgan's parents?
I did.
When?
Don't remember the exact day, but I do remember we were outside and they came down the hill. I believe at that exact time it was just Morgan's mother. So they stopped and she stopped and introduced herself, told me where they were living, what condo unit, and that they thought it was a wonderful thing that Anissa had, or that Morgan had found a friend that lived so close by to the house.
Okay. And at some point you met her father?
I did.
And was it a similar type of meeting?
Almost the same circumstances. I believe that he was driving at the time.
Okay.
So they had stopped. Morgan was in the car with him. They had stopped and introduced themselves.
So this wasn't a family you knew very closely, but you'd met them?
I had met them. Prior to Anissa attending Horning Middle School, I had never met them at all, even though we lived in the same condominium complex.
In her 6th grade year at Horning, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit A. If you could cue the doc cam up so I don't do that again. Can you tell me what that is?
That is Anissa's 6th grade school picture.
So that's would have been what she looked like at the time this happened.
Correct.
And do you recall, do you remember the day this was taken?
I don't remember the exact date, but I know it was during school orientation for the 6th grade year.
So it would have been around September of 2013?
Yes.
So about 6 months before May 31st.
Correct.
And going back to May 31st, you were, tell me about your day.
As previously discussed, we were in Milwaukee loading up a moving van, getting all of my older children's things out of Milwaukee, moving to Waukesha. I I received a phone call from Detective Thomas Casey at or about 11:15 or so in the afternoon. He identified himself. He said that they were looking for Anissa. I asked him why, and he responded that he wasn't entirely sure. All he knew at that time was that one girl was injured and 2 girls are missing.
And did he tell you whether your daughter was injured?
He did not.
Did he tell you who was injured?
He did not.
So at this point, as far as you knew, either your daughter was injured or your daughter was missing.
Correct.
Were you told at that point in time that there was a suspicion your daughter was involved in the injuring?
The only thing I was told was that 1 girl was injured, 2 girls were missing.
And what did you do then?
I instantly called Anissa's mother, asked how close she was to the condo, and that she get there as soon as possible because I didn't have that ability driving a fully loaded moving van. And I told her that I had received a phone call from a Detective Casey. They were looking for Anissa. They wanted entrance to the condo to search inside for her.
And at some time, did you arrive at the condo?
Yes.
When did you find out that your daughter had been located?
It was after noon that day, between 2 and 3 p.m.
How did you find out?
I was inside the condo. I remember Christy yelling up the stairs that they found her.
And do you know how that information was conveyed?
I do not. I could only make an assumption.
Okay. Don't want you doing that in the courtroom. But did there come a time that you learned that your daughter was considered a suspect in the stabbing of Piell?
I came downstairs and I confirmed with Detective Casey that Anissa had indeed been found. He said yes. He said, we have to take her back to the police department and ask her some questions. I said, is she a suspect in something? He said, we are not entirely sure.
And at some point you learned that she was.
Yes, that evening.
How would you characterize your reaction to that knowledge?
Objection, Your Honor, it's not relevant.
Sustained.
Were you aware, had it ever come to your attention that your daughter might be in need of some form of mental health help?
Not from my perspective, no.
Was there any time where she expressed that she had seen things or was experiencing things other people were not?
There was an episode when Anissa was about 10. She had gone to bed for the night. Shortly afterwards, she had called out for her mom and I. You know, she saw something in her closet looking at her. So, you know, 10-year-old, monster in the closet. We turned the lights on, we opened the closet, nothing's in there. We asked her what she saw. She claims to have seen a pair of red eyes looking out of her closet at her. So, in an attempt to calm her down, you know, we thought about it. Her bedroom window faced East Avenue. She had very bright pink curtains hanging in her bedroom. So I had posed the question to her that, you know, do you think it's even possible that maybe it was the headlights from somebody's car shining through the pink curtains, that that's what she saw in her closet? She said yes, and that's where we left it. She went to bed that night with no further issues.
Okay. So if she's 10 years old, you're going to talk about what it was?
Well, right, so there's a monster in my closet, there's a monster under the bed. I didn't give it any more credit than that.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing further.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, one moment. Mr. Smith is. Sorry, just briefly. How did Anissa get on with her younger brother?
I would say very typical relationship with her younger brother. You know, her icky younger brother, stay out of my bedroom, don't touch my stuff. You know, there's never anything vicious, never anything out of the ordinary, you know. And, I mean, he would play the part of the icky younger brother and egg her on, but, I mean, she never went out to, like, try to hit him or, you know, knock him down the stairs. It was always just, ew, get out of my bedroom.
They seemed to like each other?
Yes.
She seemed fond of him?
She, yeah, you know, I mean, in spite of the fact that, you know, that's her younger brother, you know, she was very fond of him. As a matter of fact, the first day that he attended school at Prairie, you know, she was right there with him, explaining to him, okay, you know, you need to do this, this is your teacher, this is where you stand in line, you know, make sure you do this, everything will be fine. You know, you'll have an awesome day, I'll see you after school.
And in the birth order in the family with your second wife, Anissa's the oldest child, correct?
Correct.
And so this is her baby brother.
Right.
And just going back a little bit to the divorce, you mentioned the children just not, Anissa specifically, not pushing for things. Would you say that she seemed more tense or more uptight?
I wouldn't classify it as uptight, but careful. Careful not to cause any further disturbance in the home.
Okay. Like walking on eggshells?
Would be one way of putting it, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing further.
Cross-examination.
One moment, Judge. All right. Sir, I just want to ask you just a couple of questions, and I will try to keep it brief. You had indicated that other than that incident when she was 10 and thought she saw red eyes in her closet, you had seen no indication of any delusions.
None.
And I understand that given your divorce and your ex-wife's passing, at least in terms of how that might have affected her sister, that she might have been a little bit saddened by that, correct?
Anissa was concerned for her older brother and sister. She wanted to make sure that, you know, they were welcomed back into the home and that they felt as excited about reconnecting as she did.
And given the situation, that was an expected response to the situation, wouldn't you say?
Well, we sat both of the younger children down and explained to them what had happened, the fact that their older brother and sister were going to be sad for quite a while, and they needed to be good kids, a good younger brother and sister, and, you know, be supportive the best way that they know how to, and, you know, just be themselves to try to take the older kids' minds off of what was happening.
And in the months prior, immediately prior to May of 2014, you didn't see any indication that your daughter was discussing killing someone, did you?
None.
She had never been in any trouble with the law prior to this, correct?
No.
In terms of things like doing something seriously wrong that would get you in trouble at school or with the law, she hadn't been a problem child at all, had she?
No.
You saw nothing that indicated to you that she needed any kind of treatment?
Other than the way she reacted to the news about the divorce when we offered to take her to see somebody, whether it be at school or a professional, it was my opinion that she was a normal child.
No further questions.
Any redirect?
Nothing further. Your Honor, I'd ask, unless the state intends to maintain their subpoena on Mr. Weier, that he be allowed to remain within the courtroom.
Any objections?
We have no objections to that, Your
All
Honor.
right, then the sequestration order is lifted from Mr. Weier. You can step down. Thank you.
Your Honor, our next witness will be K.N., a minor.
And Judge, are you okay with her keeping her water with her?
Yes, that's fine. You could just step up all the way, and then stay standing. I'm going to ask the clerk to swear you in. So do you raise your right hand? A little higher.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, then you may be seated. The microphone is the bar with the red light on it. It's in front of you, so try and speak into that.
Okay.
Then would you, we're using initials for you, so would you just state what your initials are?
KN.
All right, thank you. Then Attorney Smith.
How old are you?
16.
And what grade are you in right now?
Junior year.
Okay. Are you involved in any activities, extracurricular activities at school?
I used to be, but not right now because I'm taking a ton of extra classes online.
Okay. And I just want to let you know that I know that this is not easy. If you need any time to just take a break, a moment to gain your composure, please let me know, okay? Do you know Anissa?
Yes.
And when did you meet her?
When I was in 7th grade, she was in 6th grade.
And what school did you attend? Did you attend school together?
Yes.
And what school was that?
Horning Middle School. We were in the flight program.
Okay. Can you explain what the Flight Academy program is?
It was... Okay, when we were actually in, they described it kind of confusingly, but
Okay.
it was basically supposed to be a way for you to have more personalized learning.
Okay. And what part of the school year did you meet Anissa?
The beginning.
Okay. And in Flight Academy, are there projects assigned for you as a part of the program?
Yes.
And when they do the projects, do they pair kids up together?
Most of the time, no. Sometimes they did, but not often.
Okay. Did they pair you up with someone?
Sometimes, but not a lot. When we went on field trips, though, we usually had a partner that we had to stay with,
Okay. And who was your partner?
Anissa.
Were you someone that saw Anissa doing her lunch hours?
No.
Okay, so you didn't spend lunch hours with Anissa though?
No, because grade levels were separated.
Okay. Did you spend time with Anissa outside of the classroom?
No.
Okay. Do you know what creepypasta is?
Yes.
When did you find out about creepypasta?
I think the summer before 6th grade.
Okay. And is that something that at some point you became aware that Anissa was familiar with?
Yes.
And when did you become aware of that?
Fairly early on when we met because we talked about it quite a bit.
Okay, when you say you talked about it quite a bit, did you talk about it every day or?
For the most part.
Okay, did you two exchange things that you saw or read on the wiki or creepypasta wiki website?
Yes.
Based upon your conversations with Anissa, do you think she spent quite a bit of time on the wiki creepypasta website?
I'm not very sure about the wiki. I know we usually use different websites to read it, but
Okay, and based upon that, do you think she spent quite a bit of time looking at and reading about creepypasta Slenderman?
kind of, but nothing really abnormal from what I know.
Do you know what a proxy is?
Yes.
And what is a proxy?
A proxy in the story, it wasn't originally part of the story. It was made by some random person and then widely accepted by the fandom is people who, like, work under and help Slenderman.
Okay. And do you recall ever talking to Anissa about proxies?
Yes.
And do you ever recall the time talking to Anissa about her wanting to become a proxy?
Yes, it was only once from what I can remember.
Do you know if that was before May 31st, 2014?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall what Anissa said about becoming a proxy?
She said something along the lines of, I found a way to become a proxy. You have to kill one of your friends. And when I looked at her, like, what are you talking about? She was like, don't worry, it's not you.
Okay. And she told you this before the stabbing occurred?
Yes.
Okay. Did you tell anyone else anything about what Anissa said that day?
I told my mom and my twin.
After the stabbing occurred, did you tell anyone else about what Anissa said?
I might have told a school counselor, but I can't really remember. And I know I told some of my friends because they noticed I was getting extremely nervous around that time and having a lot of trouble.
Okay. And since May 31st of 2014, have you talked to Anissa?
No, someone in our class wrote her a letter and told me that Anissa asked me,
Okay.
or like asked her to see how I was doing for her, but that was it.
Okay. And did you try to call Anissa to respond to that letter at all?
No, I just told the other girl who originally wrote her a letter that if she sends back a letter, tell her I'm doing fine and that I hope she's doing okay.
Have you gone to visit Anissa since May 31st of 2014?
No, because I didn't really know any of that information.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, Judge.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination.
It was only once that Anissa told you about how to become a proxy, is that right?
Yes.
And what was your reaction when she told you that?
I was kind of like confused, but I didn't think she actually was like gonna do it. Because she didn't seem like that kind of person.
I don't have anything else, Judge.
Any redirect?
No.
All right, then ma'am, you can step down. Thank you for being here. Is the witness under subpoena?
She is.
She released from the subpoena? All right. Any objections?
No.
All right. Subpoena is released. So ordered.
The next witness would be SK, who is also a minor.
Ma'am, if you'd step up by the chair and then stay standing and raise your right hand a little higher, okay? My clerk's going to swear you in at this time.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Then you can be seated. And then move your chair. The microphone is that bar that's in front of you. See it with the red light? Mm-hmm. That's the microphone, so talk into that.
Okay.
And then we're referring to you with your initials. Are you SK?
Hmm?
Excuse me, yes?
Yeah.
All right, very good. Thank you. Attorney McMahon.
Thank you. SK, how old are you?
16 years old.
And you are SN, I'm sorry. You are KN's twin sister, correct?
Yes.
And did you know Anissa?
Not really, no.
Okay. She knew your sister.
Yes.
And did there come a time when you heard your sister say something about Anissa that scared you?
Objection. Hearsay.
Yes.
So I'll sustain the objection.
Your Honor, it goes to the statement having occurred. Ms. KN has expressed that she told her mother. It is a prior consistent statement and simply goes to the fact that the statement was made.
I'll overrule the objection. I'll permit the answer to go on.
Thank you. Did you hear your sister say something that scared you about Anissa?
Yes.
What was it?
That she had found a way to become a proxy and it was to kill a friend.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Slow down. Get over
Sorry.
it. I know it's
You can
hard.
pull up to the microphone. You can sit. If it jumps off the table, a bailiff will grab it.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
She said that she'd found a way to become a proxy and it was to kill a friend.
Okay. And who did you hear your sister say that to?
My sister said it to my mom and me.
Okay. And when you got that information, were you sure it was true?
No,
What did you think it might be?
I'm not sure really.
Okay. Did you tell anyone else about it?
I told the school counselor,
Okay. And do you remember which school counselor?
Miss Valk.
Ms. Valk?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you meet with Ms. Valk frequently, correct?
Yes.
Because you've got some issues with getting anxious and other things.
Yes.
Okay. And did you tell her you thought this was serious?
I told her that I didn't think that she was serious, but it was a concern of mine.
Okay. So you heard something that concerned you and you told an adult.
Yes.
Do you remember if you told her before or after Peyton was hurt?
Before.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Cross-examination.
It's concerning to hear that one of your friends might decide to kill somebody, right?
Yeah.
Nothing else, Judge.
All right. Thank you. Any redirect?
No.
All right. And then, SN, you can step down if you'd like. And ma'am, if you would come around this way behind the court reporter, that's fine. And then step up to the chair, but stay standing, and then raise your right hand. A little higher with the hand. Clerk will
arthritis in my
Oh,
shoulder.
okay. Thank you. Clerk will swear you in.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, then be seated. Pull up to the microphone. It's the bar with the red light in front.
No problem.
And then we're referring to you by your initials, so just state your initials.
KN.
All right, thank you.
And Ms. N, you are the mother of the two young ladies who've just come into the courtroom.
I am.
And did there come a time one of them told you something concerning about their friend Anissa?
Yes.
And what was it?
That Anissa had told her that she had figured out a way to become a proxy for Slenderman.
And did they know what the way was?
No, they did not know.
Okay. And what did you do with that information?
I asked her what she said to Anissa, and then I said, I don't think she's serious, because nobody would think like that.
Okay. And did you ever talk to anyone at Horning Middle School about
Yes,
what your daughters had told you?
the school counselor, but after the occurrence, not before.
And do you know if your daughters ever talked to the school counselor?
Yes, but after the occurrence also, not before.
Okay. Your daughter, SN, met regularly with one of the school counselors, correct?
Yes, because she's special needs.
And who was that counselor?
Stacy Velk?
And so she met with her several times a week, correct?
Yes,
And she would meet with her alone, correct?
yes,
And so if SN had conversation about what she had heard, you wouldn't have been there for it, correct?
no.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination.
No questions, Judge.
All
No
right.
questions.
No questions. All right, then ma'am, you can step down.
Thank you.
Is the witness under subpoena?
Yes,
And the prior witness is under subpoena as well.
yes.
Right,
Any objection to releasing the subpoenas? You can, all
no.
right, subpoenas are released. Thank you.
Your Honor, would it be possible for us to take a brief comfort break?
Yes, that's fine. We can do that. We'll take about a 10-minute recess at this time. Very good.
Over to today. The witnesses that were able to come today this morning are the ones that we've already called. We haven't been able to get any other witnesses available until 1 p.m. this afternoon.
Many of them are teachers, and so they have to arrange coverage for their classes.
All right. So you're telling me there are no witnesses to go forward?
Right,
This
at this
moment.
point.
All right, all right.
So I think we are ahead of the schedule that we had anticipated this would take, but at this point, we don't have any other witnesses until 1 p.m.
Next time you have to tell me that before we get the
Yes, sir.
jury ready. Yeah, all right, all right. No, we'll be in Rio, have somebody here at 1 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
All right.
More than one.
Well, what's the you can be seated.
Thank you.
All right. What's the schedule? Do you have enough witnesses for the afternoon?
We are working on making sure that that is the case. We do have a number of persons already who are calling. I think they will take at least until 3 o'clock, and we are attempting to make arrangements to make sure we make good use of the full day.
Well, we should go beyond 3 o'clock.
We intend to, Your Honor. A number of the other witnesses are law enforcement and have offered to be flexible in their time, so
We should have a full afternoon.
that's what we're anticipating.
All right, all right. Well, then, as opposed to us all sitting here, we'll, I think, be in recess. Any comment from the state?
I don't know if the court wishes to bring the jury out and let them know that the defense isn't prepared to proceed any further today, and that's the reason for the delay or not. I guess I'll leave that up to the court.
Why, I see bringing them in to tell them that is somewhat just up and down exercise. I'm not going to do that. So we'll just advise them, we'll come back at 1 o'clock and anticipate filling up the afternoon. Jury is internally sequestered. They're sequestered in the evening, but they're also sequestered during the day for lunch. So they'll be served their lunch within the confines of the court system. So it will be in recess until 1 o'clock today. Courtroom will be locked so that everybody can leave their lawyers can certainly leave their belongings here. There won't be access to the court during the time period that we're in recess. So with that, we'll be in recess. So
Thank you, sir. She was a guidance counselor at Prairie Middle or Prairie Elementary School. There was a reference within the discovery provided by the state to Kelly. It took a significant amount of effort on Ms. Larson's part, as well as a subpoena, to determine who Kelly actually was. So we would not have had that information at the time of the witness list that was put into the jury questionnaire, and we are not actually certain that we will be calling her. We just wanted to alert the DA's office to the possibility that this additional witness might.
So whatever it is, she's not a witness today.
Not today.
All right.
Okay.
But what was the name of the person?
Kelly Bratz.
Is it B-R-A-T-Z? A-T-Z?
ATZ, I believe. I just typed it in.
Well, in one place we have B-R-A-T-Z, in one place we have B-R-O-T-Z.
I believe it's BRATZ.
Okay, all right. And
That's
first name
fine.
is Kelly with a Y?
First name is Kelly with a Y, yes.
All right. All right, well, let's review that matter, and we can talk about that further. Then we'll bring the jury in now. All right, I think everybody's back in the courtroom. Please be seated. We're in the record in State versus Weier. The jury's back in the jury box, and all the attorneys and parties are present. So that being said, Attorney Smith or Attorney McMahon, do you have a further witness to call?
Yes, Judge, I'm going to call Christine Reinders.
Ms. Rynders, if you'd come forward. Yeah, come and have a seat behind the court reporter. Then stay standing, raise your right hand, a little higher. Clerk will swear you in.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, very good. Be seated. Then pull up to the microphone, and then it's the bar with the red light. Then state your full name and spell your last name.
Sure. My name is Christine Reinders. The last name is Reinders.
All right, thank you. Then Attorney Smith.
Ms. Rynders, how are you employed?
I'm a literacy specialist at a middle school in the Mequon-Thiensville School District.
Okay, and how long have you been employed as a teacher?
I started teaching in 1998. I taught for about 5 years. I was then a stay-at-home mom for a while, and then I came back in about 2010.
And are you employed full-time?
Yes.
Okay. In 2010, where did you start teaching?
Prairie Elementary School in Waukesha.
And how long did you teach there?
I was part-time there my first year as a Title I teacher, and then I was full-time 2 years following that, so a total of about 3 years.
And while you were there, what grade levels did you teach?
Initially, I was a reading interventionist teacher where I worked with kids at all different levels, giving them reading support. And then the 2 full-time years, I was a 4th grade teacher and 5th grade teacher.
Okay. And while you were teaching 4th grade, did you get a chance to have a student by the name of Anissa in your class?
I did.
And is that the Anissa that's sitting at the table with
It
us?
is.
Okay. And what grades did you teach Anissa?
It was 4th grade and 5th grade, so we kind of did a loop where we had them for 2 years.
Okay. And let me ask you this. How would you describe her as a student?
I had Anissa mainly for reading, and so what I found is that Anissa often connected with texts that we read. She would participate with questions. So for instance, if I asked text-dependent questions, things that happened within the text, she was very attentive and could answer them.
Okay.
She would participate when it came to me directing things, but when it came to do partner work and things like that, I kind of had to push her a little bit with that.
Okay. When you were teaching her, did you ever note any issue with her in terms of focus?
A little bit when it came time to independent reading time. We kind of like kids to have this nice stretch of time where they actually have eyes on text so they can practice reading strategies and things like that. And sometimes Anissa would maybe ask to go to the bathroom, or maybe she'd have to visit the classroom library to get a book or something along those lines, where I'd have to be like, we need to do independent reading.
And did you ever at any point notice any delays in her interpreting and analyzing literature?
She has a really good, how can I say this, text dependent. So when there were really like surface level questions, she was really good at that, and she could make connections to her own life with that. But when it came to kind of analyzing the text or inferring a little bit more, she was challenged in that area from what I remember.
Okay. And what about her ability to have relationships with the other peers in the classroom? What was that like for her?
So I mainly had Anissa for reading time. So there were two teachers. So there was Mr. Haynes, who taught like math. He was kind of like her homeroom teacher, teaching math and science and things like that. So I had her mainly for reading. And so there was a lot of partner work during our time where kids would have to turn and talk and maybe discuss a question or discuss the text or engage in some kind of project. And oftentimes she would kind of not really want to engage in that process. Like there wasn't a partner that she would reach out to and say, hey, Mrs. Reinders wants us to turn and talk about this, let's chat. She didn't really have that. She would kind of, flail, like go through her book, or she would sharpen her pencil, hoping that enough time would pass that she wouldn't have to engage in that. So what I ended up doing a lot of the time was I would assign her a partner.
So
And
there,
so I would do that with all the kids, so not to like alienate her. It would be like I would assign partners for everybody that way.
okay. So you did notice that there was some difficulty on her part getting along with some of the peers in her classroom.
Sustained.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, wait, okay. I sustain the objections. That gives Attorney Smith time to rephrase it if you'd like.
Did you notice anything about her ability to get along with her peers?
During reading time, I think she just was kind of isolated. She didn't go out of her way to do like the turn and talks and things like that. She wasn't social in that regard.
Okay. But let me ask you this. Was she at all mean to the other students?
No, I never saw that.
Was she ever disruptive in the classroom setting?
No.
Was there ever a point where you became made aware that her parents were going through a divorce?
Yes, so I believe her parents came to talk with Mr. Haynes. Mom or dad came to talk to Mr. Haynes before, I want to say it was the summer before 5th grade. Like it was just in our back to school days in August, where mom and dad had mentioned that Anissa was a little emotional because they were thinking of separating or divorcing. I don't remember which one it was. That's kind of our way of, you know, being attentive to the needs of the student, because a big part of teaching is not just the academics, but it's the social emotional. And so it was kind of like, keep an eye out for Anissa. She's kind of having a difficult time with this. So it's just kind of being aware of that.
Okay. And let me ask you this. Was there ever any points that you observed Anissa appearing to be emotional or crying?
Yeah.
How many times did you recall yourself observing that?
So for instance, she would come into my class, she would come into reading class, and you could tell that she had been crying or had been upset. A lot of, maybe there was like an issue on the playground, and then reading would be after recess time. So maybe something happened on the playground or something along those lines. So then she would come in, you know, still looking visibly upset from that. Usually Mr. Haynes would kind of process and debrief with her a little bit and then send her to me.
Okay, so but you never directly yourself talked to her about what was causing her to feel that way?
No, but I would, you know, I would check up on her and say, you know, what can I do to help? Or, hey, we're going to do this today, and I know you're going to do a great job, to try to get her to focus academically.
I don't have any other questions.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination.
Nothing, Judge.
Okay, Ms. Rynders, thank you. You have a good day.
Thank you.
You can step down. Is Ms. Rynders under subpoena?
Yes, she is, sir.
And may she be released?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Any objections?
No.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You're released.
Your Honor, I'm just going to check and make sure our next witness is here.
All right.
We know Moerman's here somewhere. That's Moerman.
swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thank you. Please be seated. And pull up to the microphone and state your full name and spell your last name.
My name is Tom Moerman, Moerman.
Thank you.
And Lieutenant Moerman, how are you employed?
With the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department.
And can you tell me how long you've been employed in that capacity?
23 years.
And I want to ask you if you were employed on May 31st, 2014.
I was.
And were you involved in any way in the investigation of stabbing on Big Bend Road in Waukesha on that day?
I was.
And what was your role that day?
I responded to the initial scene of the incident to assist the city of Waukesha. I coordinated a perimeter with their officers, handled some media inquiries, and then I cleared that initial scene.
Did you did you do anything else after that?
After that, I resumed normal patrol until the a phone call that the dispatch center received later that afternoon.
Okay. And all of your investigation that day and your role in the investigation that day, did you prepare a report regarding your involvement?
I did.
Okay. And at the time you prepared that report, it would have been like maybe the same day or the day after you were involved in the investigation?
Correct.
And so you prepared that report when things were fresh in your mind?
Correct.
Okay. On May 31st, 2014, were you involved in the apprehension of the suspects in the stabbing?
Yes.
And were you present when those suspects were actually taken into custody?
I was.
And who did you assist in the taking into custody of, if anyone?
Anissa.
And did you give her any commands when you made contact with her?
I did.
And did she cooperate with commands that you gave her?
She was extremely cooperative.
Okay. Did she struggle with you in any type of way?
Not at all.
Okay. Did you notice anything about her emotional state at the time that you had contact with her?
I did. I noticed she seemed very scared, upset.
Okay, and did you notice anything about her own physical appearance at the time?
I noticed that she was wearing a blue sweatshirt and it had some dark stains on the front.
And did you then ask her if she was injured?
I did.
And what was her response?
Her response was no, that she was very scared.
Okay, and did you ask her why?
I did. I asked her, I confirmed with her a second time that she wasn't injured because of the staining on the shirt. And she said, if I told you, you wouldn't believe me.
Okay.
Or something to that effect, or you would think I'm crazy if I told you, something to that effect.
Okay, and then what did you say to her?
I told her that I didn't believe she was crazy.
And what was her response to you after you said that to her?
I believe after I said that, she made the comment, some bad people were going to do something, or somebody was going to do something to my family unless I did something bad.
I'm going to, can I approach Judge?
You may.
I'll show you a one-page document. Can you identify that document?
Yes, sir, this is my report.
Can you go down to the last paragraph on that page?
The paragraph that starts with prior to.
Well, let's do this. Go up to the middle of the paragraph just above that.
Okay.
And start from the female appeared. And don't read it, just read it to yourself.
I read that paragraph.
And does that refresh your recollection of what she said about the people that she thought was going to harm her?
Yes.
And what did she say about the people that she thought were going to harm her?
On that day, she said, some people were going to kill my family unless I did something very bad.
I don't have any other questions.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination.
Just a couple of questions. Lieutenant, the girls, when you first made contact with them, is it fair to say they were very cooperative?
Extremely cooperative.
Seemed to understand your role and acquiesce to your authority?
They did. They listened very well.
Is there anything, and I'm not talking now about the blood or the crime that they were alleged to have committed, but was there anything unusual about the way they were acting in terms of, did they not seem to understand where they were or what they were doing?
No, they seemed very aware, and they just seemed like normal girls.
Now, you just repeated a statement about Anissa stating that some people are going to kill her family unless she did something very bad. Is it fair to say that that statement was made to you many hours after the alleged crime had already occurred?
Well, I initially had contact with them when I took them into custody at around 2:24 p.m. The initial incident was reported, I believe, around 9:55 a.m.
If I'm doing my math correctly, we're talking about like 4.5 hours later when you took that statement?
Yes.
Nothing further.
All right, any regret?
Just a few more questions. I know you had contact with her maybe quite a few hours after the stabbing on Big Bend Road, correct?
Correct, around 2:24.
Around the time that you had contact with her, she appeared still to be very emotional distraught, correct?
Yes. She appeared scared to me.
I don't have any other questions.
No.
All right, thank you. Nothing further?
No.
All right, Lieutenant, you're released. Thank you.
Thank you. Should I leave this here?
I'll take that back. That's fine. And we'll pass it back to Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Is the lieutenant under subpoena?
Yes, he can be released.
Any objection?
No.
All right, thank you, Lieutenant. Have a good day.
Next witness would be Detective Casey.
All right, thank you. Okay, Detective, thank you. Our clerk will swear you in.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Then pull up to the microphone, state your full name, and spell your last name.
Thomas Casey, C-A-S-E-Y.
Thank you.
Detective Casey, when did you first become involved in the incident involving Piell?
May 31st, 2014.
And what was your initial involvement?
I was the lead investigator for the case.
And so how did you first respond to, where did you first respond to?
Well, at about 9:47 in the morning on that date, I was in West Dallas looking for an armed robbery suspect, where a call came out over our police channel that stated that there was a subject that was found on the side of the road that had multiple stab wounds, and they requested all available squads to respond. At that point, I started to respond to the area of the scene.
Okay. And so you spent time at the scene learning information about what had occurred,
Correct.
and then you began to investigate.
Initially, it was searching for, at first we were looking for Morgan and then we were looking for Anissa together. We didn't know initially that there was two girls, so initially it was trying to locate the two girls to see their side of the story, to see what happened. We had no idea what was going on initially.
When did you first become aware of what had happened?
At about, when you say what happened, what do you mean?
What first brought about suspicion on the two girls?
Well, we knew that all three were together, and we knew that the girl had been stabbed. We honestly didn't really know. There was one statement that was made to an employee at the Sheriff's Department that Morgan made, but until we started interviewing them, we really did not know what was going on.
Okay. There came a time, though, when you learned from Piell that Morgan Geyser had stabbed her.
There was a statement made as such, yes.
By the victim.
Correct.
And at that time, were the girls already in custody, or were they not?
They were not.
So after that information had been provided, the search for the girls took on a slightly different urgency.
To be honest, we still really didn't know what was going on. We didn't know if this could be a murder-suicide, an abduction, some type of attempted homicide. We weren't really sure at that point what happened. She had just been taken to the hospital. It was a very short utterance that she made. She did not give really any specifics of what happened, so we were still pretty much in the dark about what was going on.
When you're saying she, we're talking about three girls, you're talking about Piell, correct?
Correct.
So the victim had made a short utterance that indicated that Morgan Geyser had hurt her.
Correct.
You weren't sure what had happened, so you continued to look for the two girls.
Correct. We were not sure if they were also victims or what exactly was going on. We just knew that they weren't around. There was quite a large search that entailed to try to locate them.
Mm-hmm. And when you finally located them, how did you come into contact with the girls?
I was contacted by my supervisor who informed me that the Sheriff's Department located them on the side of I-94 by County F. And I requested that they be transported back to the Waukesha Police Department so we could interview them further to find out what was going on.
And did you participate in the interviews?
Yes, I did.
Which of the girls did you interview?
Morgan Geyser.
And where did you interview her?
At the Waukesha Police Department in interview room number 137.
And that interview was video and audio taped, correct?
Yes, it was.
When dealing with a juvenile or someone in a felony level case, you are required to.
Correct.
And was a copy of that interview placed on a disc and provided to the district attorney's office and our office?
Yes.
And, Your Honor, I would note that in Exhibit F on our list is a copy of the interview that was done with Morgan Geyser. Detective, if I play you a clip from it, can you tell me if you recognize it as the interview?
Yes, I'll be able to do that.
Certainly. Right.
One hand to the next. It happened to be like out cutting my lawn, or having a beer after cutting my lawn, and I will come in and you have to do it, now you know. What I do is I just fill out right hand, left hand, finish the notes for the overrule.
You can put it down on your side if you want. Just relax a minute. Stand there, relax, and I'll tell you when you can pick it up again. You can hold it on your side.
All right. Do your right hand here. Same thing. Turn your hand over for me. There you go. Kind of long. Back. That was a little uncomfortable, sorry. I don't have ones that are smaller at the time.
Did you put like saline or something on them first, or get them wet, or they always do them dry? Oh, okay. Where do you get that from?
They're downstairs with all the swab stuff. All right. And then one more quick one. And then,
should you just have her take off her jacket and gear, you want to do that all at one place?
There it goes.
Is that Morgan Geyser as you saw her on May 31st of 2014?
Yes, it is Morgan and myself on the right and Specialist Plata.
And Specialist Plata was basically looking for evidence under her nails, correct?
Correct. We took a DNA sample from her and we collected her clothing.
And the physical motions that she's making and such, that's how you remember her being on that day?
Yes.
Did you eventually sit down and talk with Ms. Geyser?
Yes, I did at length.
And during the interrogation, were there times when you needed to leave the room?
Yes.
And what is the purpose in an interrogation of leaving the room? In this interrogation, particularly?
Sometimes the person that you're interviewing needs a break or the investigator needs a break. During the first time that I left, I went to meet with my supervisor along with Detective Trussoni, who was interviewing Anissa in another room. So we wanted to take a few minutes, see if they're both giving the same story, collaborate and see where we're headed.
Okay. And what was the importance of determining if they were giving the same story?
Because more than likely, if they're both giving the same story, it gives it tend to make you think that it's a little bit more true or correct. Or if one person's giving more information than the other, you may be able to go back and ask the other person those questions and they might elaborate.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're looking for consistency?
Correct.
And you're also looking to clarify things?
Correct.
And so at times you left to speak with Detective Trussoni and to speak with your supervisor?
One time I did that.
Okay. And when you were speaking with Ms. Geyser, did she indicate to you what had happened?
Yes, she did.
Do you recall what she told you?
She told me that back in December of 2013 that her and Anissa Weier started to plan to kill Piell.
Okay. And did that track with what you had learned from Detective Trussoni?
Yes.
And then did she go on from there?
Well, I spoke to her. The first part of the interview was an hour and 15 minutes. I took a 45-minute break, and then I talked to her for about another hour after that. So we started out very minimal information about the story, and then we started to grow as we went on to try to get to the more consistency and more of an idea of what happened.
Okay. Did she tell you, I would assume you were trying to figure out why this would have happened?
Correct.
And did she provide you with any information about that?
She continued to state throughout the interview that this was necessary. She stated that it was necessary, and when I questioned her most of the times, she would say, that's what Anissa told me. So most of her responses came back, this is what Anissa told me, I did it because Anissa said to do this.
Okay. And did she tell you why it was necessary?
She did not give a specific why it was necessary. She said that that is just what Anissa told her. There were some indications during the interview that she was afraid of something that might happen to her family, but she was not very specific on that.
So she said something might happen to her family, but she wasn't specific.
She said that Anissa told her, and she didn't want to find out what would happen to her family if she didn't do it.
Anissa and I woke up at like 5:30 in the morning, and it was before Bella, so we went downstairs and we took quizzes on quota. And they were
Attorney McMahon, just so our record is complete, when you play the portions of the transcript, or rather the recordings, are they identified on I have a piece of paper that has identified portions of the various videotapes. Is that, if I follow that down, are you doing that in order?
The finger swab was in at 10:50, ended at 16:20, sir.
Now, are we on the 37?
We are down to 42:27.
All right. The state has that index?
No, I don't know what you're referring to, Judge.
I can email it, Your Honor, to the state.
All right. So I think in order to have a record so that the transcript reflects what's actually happening in court, we should identify what portion of the disc or the recording that you're referring to. So at this point, then, you just played, what is number 4, 42:27?
And I'm sorry, we are going to the next one, which is reflected as number 2 at 37.53.
So what just played now?
That was what started to play, yes.
What was it that started?
The taking quizzes / necessary.
So number 2.
Correct.
All right, very good. So we'll note that in the record.
Anissa and I woke up at like 5:30 in the morning, and it was before Bella, so we went downstairs and we took quizzes on quota. And they were really weird. It was like, what
website?
Quotab.com.
Quotab?
It's a quiz website.
Is that QU?
V.
Yeah. So you're taking quizzes, so then what happened?
And then Bella woke up and came downstairs by us. And then we took more quizzes with her this time. And then my mom woke up.
That is coming through the audio, correct, sir? Is everyone able to hear? I'm just double checking.
Well, I could hear. It's somewhat soft, but I could hear it. Jury able to hear the sound? Everyone could hear the sound? All right, very good. Thank you.
Now, what we were just hearing there, Detective Casey, that was part of what Morgan described to you as the morning of May 31st, correct?
One of the times that we discussed it.
Okay. And she repeatedly told you that Anissa had told you that they had to do this, correct?
Her term was, she said it was necessary. She could repeatedly say that it was necessary.
And did she tell you why it was necessary?
She was not aware. She was just following the directions of Anissa. Towards the end of the conversation, she talked a little bit that she didn't want to find out about what could happen, what could possibly happen to her family.
Okay. And did she indicate what she was afraid could possibly happen to her family.
She said that it was necessary and that she was concerned it's just that a person told Anissa and that she only knows that this person told Anissa and that's why they needed to do it.
And she specifically referred to a man, correct?
Correct. The terms of the person changed a little bit. At first it was a man, then it was Slenderman, but very few references. Most times the response was it's because it was necessary, and that's what Anissa told me that we had to do.
Okay. And the term Slenderman, that came into the conversation later, correct?
There was one that was in the beginning when she talked about Anissa telling her, and she just brought up Slenderman, and I asked who he was, and then she just said, all I know is that he said that it was necessary.
Okay. She also identified that the man was the person who had chosen Peyton.
I don't recall Morgan's, or her saying that, Morgan saying that she knew that the man chose Payton.
Did she tell you why Peyton was the one who was chosen?
She did not know.
And you don't recall her saying it was because the man Anissa was talking to chose?
I don't remember. I mean, could you ask the question, please?
Do you recall whether she told you that the man who Anissa was talking to chose Peyton?
When I tried to ask her why Payton, she said that she didn't know that. That's just what Anissa told her.
Now again, she kept stressing that Anissa told her, and I'm looking at clip 4, 42.27 to 43.02.
You guys talked about doing this before? So did you guys talk about doing this beforehand?
Anissa told me we had to.
Why?
Because she said that he'd kill our families.
Was he?
A man. I didn't know him, but Anissa knew him.
How did you know?
I don't know. Anissa told me about him.
So she told you that Anissa had told you this man would kill their families
Mm-hmm. Correct.
if they didn't do this.
Correct. But I don't think that they specifically said in that conversation that it was Payton that they had to kill.
Okay. Just that they had to kill someone?
Correct.
And there were times during this, as you said, when you would leave her alone when you, either she needed a break or you needed to consult with Detective Trussoni, correct?
Correct.
And in your consulting and further investigation, did you come to feel that Ms. Geyser was being honest with you?
Actually, to the contrary, I thought that there was a time that she was trying to maybe control the situation or try to lead me down the path to believe that Anissa was the person that was 100% responsible for this.
Okay. When you left her alone, the tape was still rolling, correct?
Correct.
When you leave a suspect in a situation like that, you don't just leave them without eyes on them. You make sure that they're safe and that you know what's happening in the room, correct?
Correct.
going to be playing at 113.07 to 159.50. So that was you leaving the room, correct?
Correct. At what time was that?
This one is at, should be at 113.07.
Okay.
Would that be when you went to see Detective Trussoni?
Yes.
I wish I could cross my arms, cross your mind exactly, and hold your paper heart and wear it on your sleeve. All my life was on you, instead of promises, so easy. Shedding flesh and staring right back at me. I wish I killed my tracks, leaving them so right. That's life, oh, and a tongue just change. Left your own heaven knows, teacher.
Is this a fair representation of Morgan when you weren't in the room? If
Yes.
you were observing? Okay. And did you feel at any point in time that Ms. Geyser was not fully with you in the room?
No, I did not.
Okay. And it never occurred to you that she might have some mental health issue?
I mean, anytime we deal with these situations, there's always the concern that people have some type of mental illness. Most, or a lot of people that we deal with do, so it was a concern, something that we thought about.
But nothing that rose to the level of, say, doing an emergency detention?
Correct.
Okay. And this is a fair depiction of Ms. Geyser throughout the entire interview, correct?
Yes, it is.
And the last portion where she was singing, did you ever bother to figure out what it was she was singing?
I'm sure it's in the transcript. I can't recall the exact words that what she's saying.
Detective, have you taken crisis intervention training?
Some, yes.
When?
Different in-services. I don't know the exact dates.
Okay. You ever taken NAMI's crisis intervention training regarding juveniles?
No.
Have you ever taken NAMI's crisis intervention training?
I have not.
And that's the National Alliance for Mentally Ill?
Yes.
Do you remember when the last time you did training on dealing with a mentally ill suspect was?
I don't recall a specific date.
After you had interviewed Morgan Geyser and gotten as much information as you could out of her, you learned that she said that Anissa had told her that this was necessary, that Peyton was a friend of hers and had been there for her birthday party,
Yes.
and that that eventually Peyton was stabbed.
Correct.
That there had been several thoughts of how to do this.
Objection leading.
Overrule the objection. I see this as foundational.
And after you were done speaking with Ms. Geyser, you had to continue on with the investigation, correct?
Correct.
And there were many aspects to it, right?
Yes.
What sorts of information did you need to look at?
We were looking at her history to determine if anybody else was involved, trying to determine if there was anything that anybody would report that they observed with her, and if there was anything that was emails and other types of documentation that would lead us to gain an idea to understand things further.
Okay. And when you say to understand things further, is it fair to say that this was a confusing case for the department? It has a straightforward portion, but it was
Every case has different twists and turns. There are no two cases that are the same. I've investigated multiple homicides, and none of them are exactly the same. There's always different twists and turns, and we try to follow the evidence to get to the truth.
Okay. So after interviewing the girls, you began looking at internet histories,
Correct.
emails exchanged between the girls,
Yes.
emails exchanged with Piell.
Correct.
You talked to people at the school,
Yes, I did.
and by the school, that's Horning Middle School?
Yes, I did. I believe there was 9 school staff that I interviewed.
Okay. And having spoken with Morgan, you spoke with a number of people about what her behavior was like at school, correct?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember speaking with anyone who indicated that her behavior was a little different?
I believe the term that was normally used was weird.
Okay. And what do you specifically recall any particular behaviors that she exhibited that were weird?
I believe that there was one report that at the beginning of the school year that she was running after kids in the playground barking at them. Some of the teachers said that the kids just told them that they thought she was weird, and it was probably something that happened from the year before they came to school, but they couldn't put a specific thing or incident on that.
Okay. And teachers also told you that she had at one point in time been observed by students playing with blood, correct?
I believe she had some blood on the tip of her finger, and the teacher told her that she should clean it up. She didn't think that anything was odd with that, but she didn't want her to have a social stigma, so she asked her to clean it up, and there was no further problems with that after.
Okay, so she was playing with blood on her fingers at school.
Correct.
She had also been disciplined for bringing, I believe, a rubber mallet to school.
Yes, she was.
And what did you learn about that?
When I talked to Morgan initially, she told me about the incident, and she told me that I would obviously get the records so I would know about it. And during my discussion with her, she didn't want to talk about it any further because she said it had already been talked about with the assistant principal, and she didn't want to talk about it any further. From the information that I got from the school is that one day she showed up and 2 kids saw her with the rubber mallet in her locker. There was no confrontation with any other children, but they called her to the office, talked to her about it, and then she was suspended because of this.
And she seemed upset about being suspended, correct?
My understanding is she's more upset because her parents were contacted.
In fact, there was one report that she fell to the ground.
It sounds familiar.
And one of the leads you needed to follow up on was a report that another student had started about the rubber mallet and there being threats, correct?
Correct.
That was a student named Bella,
Correct.
not Peyton,
Correct.
but a different girl named Bella.
Yes.
And the teachers that you spoke with said they didn't believe that girl even knew Morgan,
Correct.
but she was still talking about her.
My understanding from talking to people at the school that after this happened, there was hundreds of kids that came forward and said that they had information about before, after, during, that most of the stuff they ruled out that nobody really knew. They were just trying to do things for attention. So this was another one of those incidents that we believe that that's what she was trying to do.
Okay. And the teachers at school also told you that Morgan's behaviors were just, they thought they were just for attention.
Correct.
And so that's why they just treated them as weird behaviors of a child.
I think at that age, a lot of different kids at 12-year-olds, they go through different transitional things going from grade school to middle school. And I think it was just a growth thing, and they thought that she'd grow out of it. I know that the girls had some problems at the beginning of the school year, But by the time this happened, they thought that all those behaviors were cleared up.
Okay. So the teachers thought that the kids had worked through whatever they needed to work through?
Yes,
But they'd had problems in the beginning.
correct.
You also talked with teachers at the school about Anissa,
Yes, I did.
and you learned that she was in the flight academy
Yes,
and that she was a good student.
she was.
And she at times had some issues relating to other kids, correct?
I guess if the other kids didn't perform to the level that she wanted them to, she would not be afraid to say something to them to try to get them to do what she wanted.
Okay. And you talked to Ms. Crowder, one of her teachers?
Yes.
And Mr. Allen, her other
Yes.
teacher? Ms. Crowder even had to sit down with the girls, right? And talk to them about not being mean to Anissa?
Correct. I believe that was at the beginning of the school year, and she said that after that there was no more incidents. I think that goes back to something that happened the previous year.
Okay. So the teacher sat down with the kids, said, don't be mean to someone, and everything got better.
Correct.
That sound like middle school kids to you?
I have two of them, it does.
Okay. You also went through at school and gathered the emails from the children's email accounts, correct?
Yes, I did.
As well as your department gathered email accounts from the school, from the homes, and gathered that as a part of the evidence that was taken in this case, correct?
I believe that Anissa had 2 email accounts and so did Morgan. We did not go through any of the parents' emails accounts, I don't believe.
Okay. But you went through the girls.
Yes, we did.
Did you locate any references to Slenderman?
There were.
What sorts of references? Do you recall?
I think that there were stories that they referenced back and forth about Slenderman.
And what about Jeff the Killer?
I believe there is a reference to Jeff the Killer.
Do you recall what the reference was?
Not exactly.
Okay. You brought a number of things with you today at my request.
Yes, I did.
And these are things that were taken in the course of the investigation, correct?
Correct.
And come down to the and if I have them, may I have a moment, Your Honor, I want to show Detective Casey the copies that we made to use as exhibits. Make sure that they match what we have.
All right, thank you. I'm going to pass down, Ms. McMahon, I'm going to pass down a microphone. So we're sure to be able to pick up what you say.
I'm going to ask you,
Now, you have to use the microphone.
and actually, Your Honor, if I may, I want to have the detective do a brief review of the exhibits that we've prepared. It might be more efficient if I just allow him to look at them and then go forward with that.
I'll allow you to do it any way you want, just so we can hear what you're doing.
Okay.
Is it easier if you're up on the witness stand, having the detective do it there, so he has a microphone?
Sure. I'm showing you both a sealed plastic container, including what is noted as item 6, sorry, that kind of day. Item 56.
Correct.
Can you tell me what that is?
It's a black notebook that's spiral bound. It was taken from the locker of Anissa Weier at school.
And it is her Spanish notebook, correct? Also in front of you is Exhibit G. Can you tell me what that is? In your hands.
This? That's
Yes.
G? Isn't this this is a photocopy of item number 56?
Correct.
What was the first exhibit that he was handed?
He has
The exhibit
number
number?
56 from the police department.
That's Exhibit G.
Correct. Exhibit G is a photocopy that we made of the,
Of item 56.
correct.
All right. And there's nothing magic about it, is there?
I hope not.
No, okay.
No.
So 56 is G. A copy of.
A copy of 56.
So let's just
However,
be clear. Exhibit G is a copy of item 56, true?
True.
All right.
now there's one difference between item 56, and we looked at it together during the evidence view, and Exhibit G. A number of blank pages were removed. Am I correct in that description?
I believe there's a number difference, yes.
Okay. Does anything in item G strike you as not being included from number 56?
Not that I know of.
Okay. So you recognize that as the notebook that was taken from Anissa Weier's locker?
Yes.
And it's a Spanish notebook, correct?
Yes.
At the end of the notebook, about 3 or 4 pages in, what do you find?
You talking about the drawing that you fill out on the front, or
No.
a different one? Different one? The third page, it says March 13, theme concert, We Are the Young, 71. We Are the Future, Tomorrow, 54. Seize the Moment, 71. Simple Song of Peace, 65.
And after that?
The next page.
Yes, sir.
Some scribbling, and that could be a bird upside down, and then some scribbling, and I guess it's a bird upside down.
And after that?
After that, it's the back of the notebook.
Okay. Detective, why don't you look through and see if you recognize the phrase "always watching" or "always watches" within that.
Sorry, Ms. McMahon, are we still in Exhibit G?
Yes?
Okay.
Okay, it looks like there's something written that appears to be that in more in the middle of the notebook.
And after that, is there a picture of a faceless man?
There's one blank page that's in between.
So in the back of the notebook, not to the end of the notebook, but on the inner pages, there's "always watches," correct?
Correct.
And there's a faceless man with a tie.
Yes.
Did you, in your investigation, come to learn what the phrase "always watching" or "always watches" refers to?
No.
Okay. Never heard that that was a reference to Slenderman.
I mean, I know that they say that he always watches, but where the exact phrase came from, or that it's keyed or coined just as that, I don't know that.
Okay. So in the back of the notebook, not all the way to the end, but within the inner pages, surrounded by blank pages, you have "always watches" and a faceless man with a tie, correct?
Correct.
You also recovered the department recovered a number of notebooks from Ms. Geyser, correct?
Correct.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit H and asking you if that is a copy of item 61, Morgan Science Notebook.
It appears so.
And within Ms. Geyser's science notebook, were there a number of pictures?
Yes.
And how many of them did you have an opportunity to review?
Right now, you want me to count them? One.
I'm sorry, this is Exhibit H?
Yes.
I don't know what that is. I don't have it. I don't believe I don't know what.
It's a composition book that says TOPS on the front, and then it says Science, item number 61.
I don't have a copy of that, I'm sorry.
Apologize, Your Honor. I believed that everyone did. The court also has a copy. Your Honor, I apologize. May we have a brief recess to make sure that the state has all the copies they need?
Well, they only need one right now, right?
Okay.
And all they need is H. Here, I think I have my copy of H. Ms. McMahon, is this H?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, I'll pass that to the clerk. You can give it to the state. That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
These are the science note. This is the science notebook that was provided in the disc from the DA's office. You've had an opportunity to review it,
Yes, I have.
and does it meet with your recollection of what was contained in that document?
I believe that it is.
And do you feel the need to open the exhibit to determine whether or not it's accurate?
No. I trust you.
Thank you. May I have the exhibit, please?
You done with this one? You're done with that? Oh. Why don't you take it away from me?
Fair to say, within the science notebook, there were a number of things that related to Slenderman?
Yes, it looks like those are defenses for Slenderman and defenses against Jeff the Killer.
And who was Jeff the Killer? I'm trying to get it turned the proper way so that you can read it. All right.
Another fictitious person that's written about on the internet with stories.
Okay. And was it your understanding that both of the girls seemed to have an understanding of who Jeff the Killer was?
I guess from my interview with Morgan, I can't say that she has an understanding of who Jeff the Killer is.
Okay. In your conversations with Detective Trussoni, did you hear of that individual coming from Anissa?
I mean, I've heard that reference, and there's been other conversations, and obviously I've looked on the internet. Before this, I had no idea who Slenderman or Jeff the Killer was.
Okay. So once you looked on the internet, once you began realizing that this might have something to do with your case, you started checking into it.
Correct.
Okay. So you note here that within Morgan's science book, she kept defenses against the Slenders, correct?
Correct.
For example, Slenderman, the only defense noted, run like hell, correct?
Correct.
It's hard to read some of them. But you have the idea that Maskey and Hoodie, the proxies.
I mean, I see the names on there.
Mm-hmm. Defense against them, offer cheesecake, correct?
Correct.
The Observer, need more info. To Toby, try to relate to him. Ben drowned. Was that another of the individuals through the Creepypasta website?
I mean, I don't recall that one.
Okay. The attacks, spray him with cat pee, correct?
Correct.
Salgo or Zolgo, get ready to die. Jeff the Killer, pepper spray, correct?
Correct.
So a list of ways to protect yourself.
Correct.
List of supplies necessary. Pepper spray for Jeff, right? Map of the forest. Did you learn what forest figured into this?
I know what Anissa said.
Okay. And that was the Nicolay forest, correct?
Correct.
Camera, spray bottle for Ben, cheesecake for Maskey and Hoodie, the will to live, weapons, a kitchen knife, and flashlights, right? List of supplies necessary.
Is the witness planning on answering? I haven't heard.
That's what it states, yes.
All right. Thank you.
And again, that was from Morgan's science notebook.
Correct.
Did you come to learn in your research on the Creepypasta wiki what the circle with the two X's mean?
No.
Did you ever have anyone tell you that it was a reference to Slenderman?
No.
Okay. And yet you've got the he still sees you, correct?
That's what it says.
Same sign, only one this time. Never alone, right?
That's what it states.
Again, in her science notebook, in Morgan's locker, in the school, correct?
Correct.
Safe or dead, right?
That's what it says.
Again, in the science notebook, in the locker of a child in a school.
Yes.
Don't look out the window, right?
That is what it says.
Do you have any idea the purpose behind the tentacles?
No. I'm not sure that they are tentacles, but
Again, the circle with the X in it, right? All over the place. And he cannot be harmed, right?
that's what it states.
No more secrets. And again, a man, and you can't be sure they're tentacles, but there's something coming off his back, right?
Correct.
You knew from Detective Trussoni, Anissa believed that Slenderman had tentacles that he could use to strangle people.
I'm not sure about strangling, but I know that they stated that he had tentacles.
Again, the sign of the circle with the X in it, help never comes, right?
Correct.
A drawing of a structure, correct? Or a person. Hard to tell.
Could be a chair. I don't know.
Tower.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But a reference to safe.
It states safe on the paper.
Okay. And these were all just in her science notebook. In her locker at the school.
Yes.
Is this I? I don't have I either. I'm sorry. But this is what you gave me to be in your exhibits.
I'm showing you item, I believe, is that 62 from the
Correct.
police inventory locker? And that is a copy of a wide-ruled notebook, also from Ms. Geyser, correct?
Yes, it is.
Also found in her locker at school.
Yes.
And the Exhibit I, do you recognize that as a copy of the evidence from the locker?
It appears so.
Okay. You should take a look through it. I'll let you keep your actual evidence. And this was a wide-ruled notebook taken again from Morgan Geyser's locker, correct?
Correct.
Again, the same odd symbol, correct?
Correct.
And then the circle with the X through it,
Yes.
arrow pointing to it, and it says, "Run like hell." for Slender. J, pepper spray. Looks like, can't quite make that out. Might be a JS, Smiling Jack. Another one of the Slender, another one of the killers.
I'm not sure what that is.
Okay. Asked to play hide and seek, right?
Correct.
Again, down to M and H, loves cheesecake.
That's what it appears to state.
Mm-hmm. Anissa has been added in, correct?
I believe it looks like Anissa.
And then Momo. Do you know who Momo is?
No idea.
Okay. Mumble and nervous.
Now, is that a question?
It says mumble and nervous after Momo, correct?
Can I see it again, please?
Yes, sir. Do you need me to zoom in?
Sure. Are you talking about the second line up,
Correct,
not
right.
the bottom one?
Right up next to Momo.
Yeah, I would say it probably says mumble and nervous.
Okay. Last page talks about finding radio tower, correct?
Correct.
In woods. Slender, possibility of proxy group and other creepypastas, correct?
Correct.
And again, a list of supplies, cameras with extra batteries, pepper spray
Yes, it states that.
for Jeff,
Correct.
and a picture of a strange face.
Correct.
Zolgo, and it's hard to make out what it says after Zolgo.
Correct.
Now, Morgan didn't tell you about Zolgo, correct?
We did not talk about Zolgo.
Did you ever come to learn from Detective Trussoni or the creepypasta wiki who Zolgo was?
No.
Showing you what has been marked as Exhibit J. And does that look to you like a true and accurate copy of item number 65 from the police inventory?
Yes.
I referred to it as a child's craft. Is that a fair description?
I mean, an adult could have made this as well. It's some type of craft.
This was found in Ms. Geyser's locker as well?
Correct.
Looks like there's a paper doily and some purple fabric or purple paper underneath it.
Yes.
Anissa and Morgan, or Morgan and Anissa, correct?
Correct.
Apostrophe. Then a note, if you can make her do her things. Now the asterisk seems to relate to Anissa, correct?
Correct.
The second page, hard to make out. I'm not sure if we'll be able to see it or not.
I think that's illegible.
Hmm?
I think it's illegible. I have a copy here and I can't make it out.
Then I'd ask the officer to open the exhibit, or
I can read it through the back.
You can read it through the bag?
I believe it's glued on the back of the doily.
Thank you. Please read it.
It says, Morgan, cause no trouble at all. Give me a full play-by-play of what I missed. Eat your sandwich. Get to your classes on time. Anissa, make sure Morgan stays out of trouble. Make her eat her sandwich. Olive, make sure she does I'm not sure what the last word is.
So it's a list of chores for each of the girls, correct?
I think it's some behaviors to follow.
That Anissa's supposed to look after Morgan. Make her eat her sandwich. Keep her out of trouble.
Or is it Morgan looking after Anissa?
What is the list? Hard to say.
Well, it has an asterisk next to Anissa's name, so I'm not sure if that means that Morgan's supposed to make her do these things. I'm not sure.
Okay. Showing you exhibit letter K. Does that appear to be a copy of item 66, the police inventory drawings from Morgan Geyser's locker?
Yes, it does.
So this is exhibit K, which would be drawings that were pulled from the locker of Morgan Geyser, correct?
Correct.
Again, you've got the always watches, the symbol with X's, the two X's, save me, end me.
Yes.
Picture of an individual with a knife, dripping blood, correct?
Correct.
Faceless individual in a suit with a tie and fingers that appear to be misshapen.
Correct.
Do you recognize this as anyone?
I mean, it's possibly a reference to Slenderman. I think usually he has some kind of tentacles coming out of his back, but I could only guess.
Story that's very difficult to read, beginning with Jeffrey Woods, correct?
Correct.
Do you know who Jeffrey Woods is a reference to?
I have no idea.
an individual with a, looks like a bloody mouth saying, "I just wanted to smile," correct?
Correct.
Talking about bullying after the story about Jeff Woods.
Correct.
Again, individual with a knife, skull yo-yo, multiple circles with X's. Again, this was taken from the locker in the school, correct?
Correct.
Again, you have most of the circles or faces with the X'd out eyes, correct?
Correct.
Then an individual without a face, and it appears to be tentacles, correct?
Correct.
Words, "You are a strange child, it will be of my use," correct?
Correct.
Now, we know that these are parodies of Slenderman, correct?
That's what it states.
Because it's titled Slender Parodies. Offenderman, Splenderman, Something Man, and looks like a tourist man with the camera. Individual in a suit, no face, tentacles, children in his tentacles, correct?
Correct.
Again, that safe symbol.
Correct.
Can't run. And the 0 with the X, correct?
Correct.
Always watches, no eyes. Any idea what that's a reference to?
No idea.
Not from any of your research in the creepypasta or talking with Detective Trussoni?
No.
Similar graphic. Can't run. Trees. Slenderman. Safe. Right?
Correct.
Jeff the Kitten. Again, safe. The woods all around. And save me. Right?
That's what it appears to state.
All in the locker of a 12-year-old.
Correct.
Now, as far as a student, Morgan was a good student, correct?
They both were, I believe.
Okay. Turned their homework in, showed up on time,
Correct.
gave nobody, other than the suspension for the hammer for Morgan, the blood on her fingers, and the chasing children, barking. Not discipline problems, correct?
Correct.
Let's go back to Exhibit G. It's the only one I didn't show everybody. This is Anissa's Spanish notebook, correct?
Correct.
The majority of it in this book from Anissa's locker is Spanish, right?
Correct.
What you would expect to find in a notebook. Child who was working hard, it appears, correct?
Correct.
Always watches, correct?
That's what it states.
No tentacles, but the faceless man with the tie, correct?
Correct.
You, as I've already indicated, that you helped with the recovery of information from the girls' email accounts, correct?
Correct.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit L. It's 2 pages. They're separate emails, correct? This is 2 different ones.
On this one, yeah. Yes, they're dated 2 different times.
Okay. One of them was an email from Morgan to Anissa, correct?
Correct.
And the email indicated that she'd found proof that Jeff was real, correct?
It says on here that she says that she knows that it's real.
If you look at Frag 7, the first one,
I mean, just by this article, you want me to surmise that Morgan knew that he was
No.
real?
just that Morgan sent this article to Anissa, correct?
Yeah, she sent it. I thought you asked a different question.
Okay.
Sorry.
And the second page was a different day, correct? And it referenced her father having told her that there was a serial killer in the Milwaukee area like Jeff the Killer, correct?
Yes, and he stated, wasn't there like a creepypasta? I believe that was the father's response.
Right. If you look at Exhibit L, now that is something you recognize as having been sent from Morgan Geyser to Anissa Weier, correct?
Correct.
And it was a story, a news story that supposedly related to Jeffrey Woods, correct?
Can you move it over a little bit so I can read it?
if you look outside of the picture of the newspaper article, along here, I have some proof Jeffrey is real. I did some research, correct?
Correct.
And did you ever come to find out who Jeffrey Woods was?
No.
And again, this was an email from Morgan to Anissa, correct?
Correct.
Referencing having heard that there was a serial killer that resembled Jeff the Killer, correct?
Which sentence are you referencing?
Too far down.
And what was your question again?
It references Jeff the Killer. It's an email from Morgan Geyser, correct?
Correct.
Can you read it? Should I zoom in a little?
I can read it now.
Okay.
I guess I don't understand your question.
It says, you know there is currently a serial killer in Milwaukee that resembles Jeff the Killer, correct?
Correct.
My dad came downstairs and asked, wasn't there like a creepypasta smiley face killing thing? And it was just like Jeff, tell you more later?
That's what it states.
Okay, and that was from Morgan Geyser to Anissa Weier.
Correct.
And that was May 21st, correct?
Yes.
Now, is that email part of Exhibit G?
It is Exhibit L, sir.
L.
Detective, you were also aware that at some point in time a note was found, a note on a phone from Anissa Weier to her family, correct?
Correct. I saw that note on the 31st while we were still looking for the two girls.
Okay. And it included both sort of a last will and testament and a goodbye, correct?
At that point, we weren't sure if it was a suicide note or exactly what it meant.
Okay. I'm showing you what I've marked as Exhibit C and D. Exhibit C is on top. And Exhibit D is beneath that, correct?
Correct.
One was an indicator that she wanted everything she had to go to her parents.
Correct.
And the other was fair to summarize as a goodbye note.
Correct.
And you recognize those as things you saw on the date of the 31st?
Yes.
This was the note that you saw on the phone.
Yes.
And this was Anissa Weier's phone, correct?
Yes, it was.
And it was left at her parents' condo.
Yes, it was. Her father's condo.
And this was her final wish to those who care. Do not grieve my absence, but remember me for who I was. I love and cherish you all and wouldn't do you harm, correct?
That's what it states.
And it appears to have been written, typed, however you refer to it, on May 28th at about 4:05?
Correct.
So that would have been the Wednesday before the birthday party.
I believe so.
And again, Exhibit C, I want everything I own to go to my parents, and best wishes to all who knew me personally. Do not miss me.
Correct.
The tone of those notes, you weren't sure what they meant, but you were afraid they might be a suicide type situation.
That's what my initial impression was when I read that.
There were a number of items recovered when the girls were found, correct?
Yes,
And most of them were contained in what?
a purse.
And I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit O. You should have copies of these.
Is there an issue that's going on?
Maybe getting low on a battery as far as her hearing.
I see.
Would the court like to take a break at this time to change that out and let people stretch?
Well, it may be appropriate to do it at this time. Let's take
Thank
our...
And Judge, is there a way to check to see what testimony she may have missed?
I don't know. We can ask her what she missed, but she may not know if she missed it.
Well, she may
Since you're-
know, like, the last exhibit she remembered hearing about.
And here, she was moving it around and there was some static that she was hearing.
All right, that's good.
Okay.
Well, we'll take a recess at this point, and let's come back about 5 minutes after 3. Detective, you can come back to the stand.
We'll hum.
Ms. McMahon, you have another witness for the afternoon? No. All right. All right, thank you. Please be seated. We'll be back on the record in the State versus Weier case, same appearances, with Detective Casey on the stand being examined by Attorney McMahon. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I'm just to be cautious. I believe the last thing we were reviewing before the break, Detective Casey, was the notes that you found on the phone, on Anissa Weier's phone. And just because there was concern about someone hearing, I wanted to make sure she had the opportunity. So
You could center the exhibit.
is that better, Your Honor? So this is the note, kind of a will and testament that was found on the phone of Anissa Weier on May 31st of 2014, correct?
Correct.
And that is Exhibit, I believe, C, that you previously identified. And also present on that phone was the additional note that you were concerned might be some form of a suicide note because you didn't know what you were dealing with at that time, correct?
Correct.
And that is Exhibit B, or Exhibit D, excuse me.
D as in David?
D as in David, correct?
Correct.
And this is a fair and accurate copy of what you saw that day?
Yes.
And based on what you read in the will and testament and the note, you were concerned that the young lady might have suicide on her mind.
Correct.
And again, the young lady whose phone it was Anissa Weier.
That is correct.
And so the assumption was that it was her note, correct?
Correct.
Now, I had placed in front of you a number of items, correct?
Correct.
Can you take a look at them? Tell me if you recognize them, then I'll put them up on the screen if you do.
Yes, I recognize them. I'm actually going to those two.
Okay. Get back to those in a minute. I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit O. Can you tell me what that is? Photo of.
Excuse me?
What it is a photo of.
It's a photo of a purse that was located between Anissa and Morgan when they were arrested on the side of I-94 and Highway F.
And is it fair to say that this was basically the total of items they had on their person, other than their clothing?
Yes, it was.
And the picture, as it's looking down, would be how the police department received it initially without taking things out?
Yes.
So that's how it came into custody.
Yes.
As a part of the investigation, items were then removed and cataloged, correct?
Correct.
And by cataloged, I mean you made a list of what was there, right?
Written inventory.
Item P, can you tell me what that's a picture of?
It looks like some Kudos snack bars
And where were those located?
inside of the purse.
Exhibit Q. What was that?
Looks like a wrapper for some peanut butter crispy rice bars.
Also from the purse?
Yes.
R. Appears to be a wrapped package. Is that a fair description?
That's a fair description.
Do you recall what was wrapped?
I guess would be photographs.
Okay. I'm showing you what has been marked Exhibit S. And yes, my handwriting is hard to read. It's S, not 5. That is another view inside the purse after water bottles had been removed, correct?
Correct.
And some of the snack treats.
Correct.
And in it you see a kitchen knife, looks like a spiral notebook,
Yes.
and a few other things.
Yes.
Showing you Exhibit T. Now that was a picture from an evidence view, correct?
Excuse me, can you ask the question again?
That was a picture from an evidence view that you were kind enough to set up for the state and us.
Yes, it is.
So this reflects after the department had disposed of the kudos and the peanut butter crispy bars, what was left in the purse, the contents of the purse, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a can of off, a number of, well, small sanitary pads, correct?
Correct.
And then notebooks, photos, a little photo album, correct?
Correct.
And the water bottles.
Yes.
In that, what was seen in the purse, what we saw at the evidence view, and the kudos and the crispy panda thing, that was the sum total of what was in the purse, correct?
Correct.
Showing you it's been marked as Exhibit U. Do you recall what that is?
I believe it's Anissa's shoe.
Okay. So she was wearing boots that day.
Correct.
Those are fleece lined.
Yes.
Fair to call them winter boots?
Yes. Hiking boots.
And then item V, those are Anissa socks?
Socks.
May 31st of 2014, do you remember what the weather was like?
It wasn't extremely hot, but it was sort of your normal May 31st day. Wasn't real hot, wasn't very cold.
Okay. Not appropriate for winter boots, correct?
Probably not.
Okay. You also have in front of you Exhibit M. And Exhibit N, correct?
Correct.
Do you recall what those are?
I mean, M, I don't recall.
Okay. N?
N is a email thread between Anissa and Morgan.
Okay. And you recall that as something that was recovered by the department?
Which one is that the school district one? Yeah, this was from an evidence search that we recovered that one.
Okay. And it was an email thread between Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weier, correct?
Correct.
Morgan, who went by the handle of Hermione G, 516, correct?
Correct.
Noted that she was hearing someone growing closer and closer to her in a sort of creepy way.
That's what the email states.
She was hearing footsteps in the hall, had to go.
That's what it states.
Anissa replied that she couldn't see her closet. It was just a black mass, correct?
Correct.
Anissa received an email back from Hermione G, Morgan, that she just heard someone whisper, "You're next," correct?
Correct.
Now, these were not the only emails you discovered between Morgan and Anissa, correct?
Correct, there was multiple.
There was a significant correspondence between the girls.
Yes.
And one of the emails from Morgan directed Anissa to delete anything that Morgan had sent her previous, correct?
Yeah, she said after the incident happened that they're obviously going to look at her school emails, that she should delete everything before it happens.
And Anissa appeared to have complied.
I'm not sure if she did that or not. We're able to recover some things, and some of the emails were recovered from 2 or 3 different places, so I'm not sure what the difference is between what was showed and what was erased.
Okay. And really, when people think they're erasing things, oftentimes a forensic analysis of the computer can find things, correct?
Correct. There's multiple different ways. I mean, the computer itself, the email companies save the emails as well. The school has a drive that saves the emails, so there's multiple different places that they can be located.
Okay. And you reached out to the multiple different places, you or other persons in the department, correct?
Yes.
And looked to find the connections between the girls.
Yes.
And fair to say that they had a fairly frequent correspondence.
Yes.
There was a additional email set up by Anissa under a different name, correct?
Yeah, she stated that before the incident happened, she wanted to be able to talk freely and have nobody looking at her email. So she set up a different email so people couldn't be looking at it.
Okay, and was that Anissa's idea or was it at Morgan's suggestion?
The way I read the emails, it was Anissa's suggestion.
Okay. So they were continuing to correspond on multiple emails.
Different email, yes.
Do you recall off the top of your head how many emails went back and forth between the girls?
I don't recall counting.
Would it be fair to say it was daily contact?
Yes, and all hours of the day and night.
So unlike when a child needed to go to the phone in the hallway and call, children in Anissa and Morgan's position were able at different times of day and night to contact each other.
I mean, I don't know if that's just children, but generally in the world that we live in today with the electronics that are available, I think people of all ages do that, so.
Okay. Now, you and the department located a number of different devices that each child had been using, correct?
Anissa, we got her phone that she had and an iPad. And then Morgan, we got her computer that she had at home.
And on the computer that she had at home, there was also a Kindle, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so there was the Kindle, the Geyser computer.
Correct.
Okay. And do you recall if the browser history on the Geyser computer demonstrated an interest in creepypasta or Slenderman?
There was a number of searches on different things, but those are some of the things that were included.
And do you recall if there were searches regarding proxies?
Yes, there were.
And did you follow the links of those?
I tried on some of them.
Do you recall which ones you searched?
No.
Okay. So there were links to information about proxies, information about various creepypasta characters,
Correct.
various killers,
Yes.
and while you attempted to access them, you weren't able to activate any of the links.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Detective. Nothing further.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Judge, thank you. Good afternoon, Detective Casey.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to start with showing you a few other series of emails. I'll show you, Detective, what's marked as State's Exhibit number 1. Ask if you can identify what that is.
This is a email thread that was recovered from Morgan Geyser's Hotmail account.
And that's a series of emails between Morgan Geyser.
Yes, it is.
And the first in time of those emails is on the bottom of page 2. Is that right?
Correct, so it goes in reverse order.
And that, on the bottom of page 2, that's an email from Anissa Weier to Morgan Geyser on April 26th at 6:55 a.m.
Yes.
And really their names that they're using there are Alexandra Weier at hotmail.com. Is that right?
That's correct.
And it's to Hermione G516 at hotmail.com.
Correct.
And you know from your investigation that that's Anissa to Morgan?
Correct.
And that first one indicates Anissa tells Morgan, this is a new email I set up. Now we can openly talk about that thing. P.S. I'm sorry for lying. I was doing it for your sake. Like I said earlier, I didn't want you to become crazy because you saw something and I didn't. Right?
Yes.
That's what Anissa tells Morgan?
Correct.
Then Morgan responds at 7:32 a.m. on April 26th. You didn't tell me anything about lies you had told, but I would estimate that you weren't telling the complete truth when you said you saw Kate or Slender out the bus window, question mark, question mark. Rough guess. If I were you, I would copy and paste anything important I have sent to your old email and save it as a draft in your new one. Make sure not to leave any traces because when said events happen, the school will search your school email. Did I read that right?
That's correct.
Anissa then responds to Morgan at 8:53 a.m. on that date. Well, I lied about some things, not Kate or Slender, but a few other things, and I did that because I didn't want you to feel insane because you saw something and I didn't. Correct?
Correct.
Again, this seems to be some conversation about Morgan having said she saw something and Anissa acknowledging that.
Yes, I believe that's seen Slenderman while they were riding in the school bus.
Morgan replies on that same date, but much later at 15:25. That would be 3:25 in the afternoon. Is that right?
That's correct.
It is fair. I lied to help you. If you weren't a part of the plan, then your life wouldn't be so exciting. That's something Morgan said to Anissa.
Yes.
And Anissa replied at 4:04 p.m. Also, I deleted all the emails you sent me before I read that. I figured the school would search my email, so I deleted everything. Right?
Correct.
Morgan then says at 4:23, it's fine. I already wrote everything down. Stop feeling like shit. It was hurtful what you did because it reminded me of what Bella and Rachel and the girls who have in the past betrayed me have done. But honestly, I used Vulcan mind tricks, so I didn't feel upset at all. Just promise not to fake anything from now on. This involves your stuttering and twitching that you keep up for about a minute every 3 weeks. Trust me, I can tell the difference. Physical and mental disabilities are no joke. I read that right, Detective?
That is correct.
Morgan then also said, roughly less than a minute later, sorry to be abrupt. And at the very top of that exhibit, do you know who sent that last email that's on the top?
I believe it's Anissa sent it.
It makes sense based on the content?
Yes.
And that one says, it's okay, I needed a wake-up call. And by the way, I will not lie about anything unless in front of others, and I will not betray you. I've never done that to a friend, let alone someone who I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. I swear to God, if you laugh or show any sign of a dirty mind, I will know. But I won't betray you, and I will not twitch unless I get a chill down my spine. Did I read that right?
That is correct.
All of that seems to be some reference to this plan of these events. Is that fair?
I believe so.
And the reference to spending the rest of their life together would fit with the plan that they were going to go to the Nicolay Forest after this occurred?
Correct.
Detective, you spent a long time in the interview with Morgan Geyser, correct?
Yes, I did.
Any idea roughly how long that was?
The entire tape is a little over 5 hours long. Most of the interview content was a little over 2 hours.
And that interview starts out, for the most part, with Morgan deflecting all responsibility to Anissa. Is that true?
That is correct.
She says that we stabbed Bella, right? She doesn't say that she did, right?
Correct.
You ask her who stabbed her first, and she said, I think Anissa did, right?
Correct.
She wouldn't take responsibility for that.
Correct.
She claimed to you that really this was all Anissa's idea, right?
Correct.
Anissa said it was necessary?
Repeatedly.
And that's much different from what you know of the interview that Detective Trussoni conducted with Anissa, right?
The two interviews were very different.
It didn't seem that Morgan at any point wanted to indicate that this was any kind of a shared thing between her and Anissa, did she?
No, she was trying to deflect all the blame onto Anissa.
At one point, Morgan tells you that Anissa doesn't like Bella, right?
Correct.
I'm sorry?
She referred to her as a bitch.
Who referred to who as that?
That Anissa doesn't like Bella.
Morgan told you that Anissa would call Bella a bitch.
Correct.
Right? Morgan also had difficulty in the beginning as far as who brought the knife, right?
Right. It started out that she thought that Anissa did, and then it went to we did, and then at the end she admitted that she was the one that had it.
And a lot of the time during your interview with Morgan, she's not really giving you a straight answer, is she?
No, very short answers. It was almost as if her answers were already scripted, that she had to set in her mind ahead of time what she was going to say or answer.
At times she tells you that this was necessary, right?
Through the entire interview she states that.
But didn't really explain what that meant.
Correct.
But at other times she told you she didn't know why they did this, right?
At the end she said, in reality, I don't really know why we did this.
At the end?
At the end of the statement, that's how we finished.
And she also told you during this statement that she knew this was wrong, right?
Correct.
I'm going to show you another series of emails.
There's a pack with, do you have an exhibit list?
I do not yet, Judge.
All right.
We only have these two.
All right. You'll be supplying a list?
Yes.
All right.
Show you what's marked as states exhibit number 2. Can you identify what that is?
It's a copy of an email thread that we obtained through the Waukesha School District for the accounts of Anissa Weier and Morgan Geyser.
And That one's different than Exhibit 1 because the first in time is the first one on page 1, is that right?
Correct, this one's in chronological order.
Can you read for me, Detective Casey, what that first one says?
The first one is from Anissa Weier to Morgan Geyser on May 23rd at 4:36 p.m. It says, my mom just said that because I missed one, it says FING, little choir assignment, I might not be able to go. And then there's 3 exclamation marks.
What comes next in that series?
Then there's a response from Morgan to Anissa at 7:08 p.m. and it says, what? And Anissa responded back, my mom just said that because I missed one effing little choir assignment, I might not be able to go.
Well, wouldn't it be that the what is a reply to the one that's down below? Does that seem to make sense as to how these are listed?
That could be.
Okay, because there's another one then at 7:09, and that's from Anissa back to Morgan saying exactly.
Correct.
And then Morgan replies to Anissa at 7:11 on May 23rd, right?
Correct.
What did Morgan say?
She said, I swear if your mom says you can't come, and then in all capital letters, I will literally crawl in your freaking window and add her to that list of bad people, period, delete this email.
You testified earlier, Detective Casey, about speaking to some of the teachers for both Morgan and Anissa. You remember that?
Yes.
You remember speaking to these teachers?
Yes, I do.
You spoke to a Diane Geyser, Giese. Remember that?
Yes.
She told you that Morgan's an odd kid and a loner, right?
Yes.
She wasn't liked by other kids?
Correct.
Other kids thought she was weird?
Yes.
But the teacher didn't see anything in Morgan to make the other kids think that about Morgan, right?
That's correct.
The teacher was somewhat surprised that Morgan was friends with Peyton because Peyton was a sweet girl.
Yes.
But Morgan understood and followed the rules, right?
Yes.
She cooperated, right?
Yes.
Did her homework.
Yes.
Always did what was told.
Correct.
But Morgan had an attitude of screw all of you to get attention.
That's what she thought.
That was the teacher's words, right?
Yes. It's her exact words.
Miss Geyser had never heard Morgan speak of Slenderman.
Correct.
But believed Morgan to be a smart girl, but she didn't know how to relate, right?
Correct.
You spoke to Anthony Sierra also about Morgan.
Yes.
He told you that other kids viewed Morgan as different, right?
Yes.
That the kids were not sure of her.
Correct.
But Morgan had no behavior issues, right?
Correct.
She knew right from wrong.
Yes.
What's the objection?
Teacher's Foundation for knowing the difference between right and wrong.
Well, I'll sustain that objection. Sustained, I'll strike the question and the answer.
Well, Judge, the state and the defense had a stipulation that Detective Casey would be able to testify as to what the teachers said about each of the girls. So
Is that why there's been no one? That's why there have been no other objections, apparently. All right. Well, is this you're saying this is part of a stipulation?
If the defense wants me to bring in Mr. Sear to testify that he is able to assess whether a student knows right from wrong, I guess I can do that.
Well, I'll honor the. There's not. I take it there was a stipulation.
There is, Your Honor, and certainly, I guess we will simply argue.
Well, I'll reverse my order. If there's a stipulation between the parties as to that this type of testimony that explains why this is coming in, I'll reverse that and I'll overrule the objection. Thank you.
But, Your Honor, I do believe that the language should be the teacher believed she knew the difference between right and wrong.
Well, that's a matter for cross-examination.
Certainly.
I'll ask another question, Detective Casey. Mr. Sierra, one of Morgan's teachers, told you he believed Morgan knew right from wrong, didn't he?
That was his belief.
And he also told you that Morgan seemed like she was 4 years older than she really was.
She seemed very intelligent. They had a conversation one time about astronomy, and he was just amazed in the things that she was saying. He thought that she was very, very intelligent.
You spoke to another teacher, Jill Wiedenbaum, Weidenbaum, right?
Yes.
And that was Morgan's favorite teacher, right?
Yes.
She told you that she believed Morgan did weird things to get attention, right?
That was her belief.
Morgan didn't really care if other people liked her or not?
No.
She never saw Morgan be violent, right?
Never.
Morgan followed the rules?
Yes, she did.
She also gave you the opinion that at least Miss Wiedenbaum believed that Morgan understood right from wrong?
That was her belief.
She told you that Morgan never spoke of Slenderman?
Correct.
And as far as Anissa, you spoke to Jeffrey Allen, correct?
Correct.
One of the Flight Academy teachers?
Yes.
This would have been a teacher of Anissa's during 6th grade, right?
Yes.
He told you that Anissa is always excited,
Yes.
happy,
Yes.
quirky,
Yes.
well-liked by her peers.
Yes.
Sometimes her temper got in the way.
Yes.
She always helped.
Correct.
She followed directions.
Yes.
She kept up with her homework.
Yes.
She was a rule stickler, right?
That is one of the things that he said.
She understood the expectations in the class.
Yes.
He gave you his opinion that, in his opinion, she knew right from wrong, right?
That is correct.
She never talked about Slenderman.
Never.
He called her a typical middle school student, like any other kid.
Yes.
Nothing weird or out of the ordinary.
Correct.
Very smart girl.
Yes.
And you spoke to Krista Crowder, Krauter, right?
Yes, I did.
Also a teacher in the Flight Academy.
Yes.
She told you Anissa speaks her mind.
Yes.
She's very smart.
Correct.
Focused.
Yes.
A typical middle school kid.
Yes.
She got frustrated with other kids.
Yes, when they didn't do what they're expected.
She had been a tour guide for the Flight Academy program, right?
Correct.
And Ms. Crowder said Anissa did a fantastic job as a leader.
Yes.
She was very motivated.
Correct.
Followed directions.
Yes.
Seemed to know the consequences in the class.
Yes.
She knew to come to adults if there was a problem.
Correct.
Ms. Crowder could not remember a time that Anissa didn't follow the rules.
That's correct.
Never talked to Slenderman in front of Miss Teacher Crowder.
Never.
I know we went through some of those emails that seemed to suggest, I think you testified that Morgan had seen Slenderman, but Anissa had not. Is that right?
I believe that that was the lie that they were speaking of.
But during your interview of Morgan, she told you that she had never seen Slenderman, right?
Correct.
And I guess I'd call it another contradiction Morgan indicates during her interview. At one point, she says that she hopes she never sees Anissa again.
At the end of it, that is correct.
But earlier on in the interview, she had said to you that Morgan didn't want to make Anissa mad and said, I don't want to lose her over something like this. At the end of that said, it's our fault, and she said before, we take full responsibility. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
So at least in the beginning of the interview, it seems that she was very concerned to maintain her friendship with Anissa, right?
Yes.
I know that Ms. McMahon showed you some pictures out of Anissa's Spanish notebook. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
And there's a picture of a girl with what seems to be blood on it, right?
Yes.
Another page that says he always watches, right?
Yes.
And another one of a tall, faceless man.
Yes.
You don't know who drew those, do you?
I have no idea.
Just because that's Anissa's Spanish notebook, we don't know that Anissa drew those, do we?
We do not.
Nothing else, thank you.
All right, thank you. Redirect.
Yes, sir. Detective, the teachers who told you that Morgan was a smart girl and didn't speak of Slenderman didn't mention any of the art she drew in her notebooks, did she?
None of those teachers mentioned that. There was a guidance counselor at one point that said that there was something written in her notebook that they found, something about dying that got brought to her attention, and they questioned her about that.
Okay.
I believe that was Angie Jackson.
Okay. So they found a journal of some sort that talked about dying.
Correct.
There was a locker full of documents you've already identified as coming from Morgan Geyser's locker. And I'm assuming you're going to tell me you don't know if Morgan drew those, right?
I don't know that. I never talked to her. I talked to her on May 31st. That's the last time that I've ever talked to her.
Okay. But those were the notebooks and drawings retrieved from her locker, correct?
Correct.
And the Spanish notebook was the notebook retrieved from Anissa Weier's locker, correct?
Yes.
When you talked with Ms. Crowder about Anissa, she let you know that she, in the beginning, had to sit the girls down and make them not be mean to Anissa, correct?
There was some kind of conflict, and she dealt with it.
Okay. And she said that Anissa knew to come to adults when there was a problem, correct?
Yes.
That was her experience, and that's why she sat down with the girls and talked with them, because Anissa had come to her.
Correct.
Do you recall exactly what they said about Anissa knowing right from wrong? Why they came to that conclusion?
I think when they gave them directions in class, they followed the directions. They didn't break any of the rules. When there were rules, they knew the expectations and they followed them.
And would it be fair to say that that was the same sort of information you received supporting the belief that Morgan Geyser knew what was right and wrong?
Correct.
So, because they followed the rules in school?
Correct.
While the teachers didn't know why the children thought Morgan Geyser was weird or odd, they knew that it had been reported and found that she brought a rubber mallet to school for protection, correct?
Right. When I talked to her about that, she said that it was an accident. And when I asked, or when she was asked by the guidance counselor after why she said that, she said she didn't know why she had brought it. And
Okay.
she didn't know why she said protection.
So either she needed protection or she didn't realize she had a rubber mallet in her backpack?
She said she was cleaning her room and she left it in there.
In her backpack.
Yeah.
And frankly, bringing something that could be used as a weapon to school is a violation of school rules, correct?
I mean, weapons are, I mean, I never saw the mallet, so I'm not sure how intimidating it was.
They
but-
suspended her, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it would have been a violation of school rules.
I would think so, yes.
They knew that kids had reported she was playing with blood on her fingers?
The one teacher knew that. I don't think anybody else knew that. I don't think it was documented anyplace else. She just told her to clean it up so it wouldn't be an issue.
So that she wouldn't be stigmatized by the other
Correct.
kids. And the teachers reported that neither Morgan nor Anissa had discussed Slenderman with them.
Correct. No, nobody that I talked to said that they discussed Slenderman with them.
But you know from their email exchanges that they were discussing him with each other.
Correct.
And you know from the Geyser's browser history that someone at the Geyser household was spending a lot of time looking for Slenderman.
Correct.
And you even tried to follow some of the links to see what they were looking at, right?
Yes.
And you had access to the Geyser browser history, correct?
Correct.
And do you remember looking at anything relating to sigma radiation?
I don't recall that. I don't recall that, no.
Okay. You mentioned that you remembered trying to look up proxy.
I mean, the files are very deep. I mean, I looked at stuff for hours and hours, and to say if there's one item or another, I mean, I can't really recall without looking through it.
Would it help to look through it?
If you want to bring something up on there, that's fine. I mean, it's could take hours and hours to go through the different things. I'm not sure what you'd be looking for.
These are the, do you recognize this?
I mean, there's nothing on there that states exactly what it is. I'd imagine it, is there anything that identifies it coming from their computer that?
Certainly, I can take it a step back. Do you recognize the Geyser Family PC Internet Evidence Finder?
I mean, I see that up there, yes.
Okay. We can bring in the evidence tech who
I mean,
took.
I can assume that, I mean, I have no reason to believe that you have anything else other than that up there.
Okay. Do you remember which of the links that you attempted to search?
No.
So you don't remember if it was Anime Jeff the Killer and Client?
Judge, I'm going to object that all of this is beyond the scope of the cross-examination and
That's overruled.
new questioning.
Overruled, cross-examination is wide open. And this is redirect. You had references to emails in your cross-examination, so I'm satisfied to then on redirect go through that as appropriate. You were wide, the cross is wide, then the response in redirect can be as wide.
Well, my only comment is this is now on doing research on proxies of Slenderman. This is beyond emails.
Well, I'm satisfied it's within the context of the cross. Where? So objection overruled.
It's fair to say that there was a lengthy browser history of searches for Slenderman and the Creepypasta wiki, correct?
Yes, among other things.
We go down to 228, for example. 226, you've got the Slenderman Wikia, The Sickness, correct?
Correct.
Do you remember if you tried to follow that link?
I don't recall.
How about Slenderman? If you go down to 228, again, the sickness. Slenderman, the obsession.
I don't recall.
And you didn't document which ones that you tried to search.
No.
Do any look familiar to you?
They all seem relatively similar or familiar.
Similar to familiar? Okay. It would make sense that in searching to try and figure out what was going on, you would try and understand what was the background, right? And that's why you would have been looking at this.
Trying to see what they were all looking up, the times that they were doing it. I know that one's at 5 o'clock in the morning. That one's at 1 a.m. I mean, we never knew for sure who was actually doing the searches, who it was. So, I mean, we looked up a little bit about Slenderman, but there's volumes of different things available. And to memorize it all, I think is impossible.
Okay. And again, you didn't see any that you felt the need to note.
Correct.
And again, you've got the Slenderman Wikia.
There are some that we noted, but if you reference just Slenderman, I know there was one search that she searched about how to get away with murder when you kill somebody.
Right.
That was on there. There's some other things about capital punishment, some people that have killed people in the past, how to get away with murder, some searches like that I recall.
And you
But
noted the ones that dealt with searching for about capital punishment and searching for crimes, but you didn't note what you looked at regarding creepypasta.
all those are very similar. They're not very different. They don't really stand out when you go through. I mean, you're just looking through one day or so. I mean, and there's a lot in there.
Every day there was a lot in there, right?
Yes.
Okay. Like in May, you've got Reunion with the Angel of Death and Sigma Radiation, Core Theory, Quantum Theory, Slenderman.
A lot of those are pages or threads that people write on. They have their little own short stories that they make up, and they tell stories for other people to read. So it really didn't help in, you know, we were trying to locate if anybody else was involved, anybody that they had contact with. That would be another third party, and that was mainly what we were trying to do there.
Okay. But you felt it necessary to note the things regarding planning to kill someone.
Yeah, those stood out among the other things.
But it was clear from what both girls told you that they had planned to do this. They didn't hide that.
Yeah, not only did they do a plan, but they also looked at the punishment for committing a homicide. So
That's right, and they thought you were going to execute them, correct?
I know that Morgan asked me what was going to happen to her. She asked if she was going to go to prison for the rest of her life, or actually I asked her, and she thought that she was either going to go to prison or an insane asylum. At one point she asked if she was going to get her head cut off. I don't think she thought that I was going to do that, but I think maybe in medieval times, some of the research that somebody could do, you'd be able to come up with why you would think that.
Wisconsin doesn't have the death penalty, does it?
It does not. But some of the, I think when you go back and look over the things over the course of time and maybe different cultures, that could be something that they did. I'm not sure.
It was something she asked you specifically if you were going to cut her head off.
Correct. And the context behind that, I'm not sure where that came from.
Missy, thank you. So you talked to teachers and found out that they followed the rules at school, that they didn't talk to their teachers about creepypasta, that kids thought Morgan was weird, that there may have been an issue for Anissa at the beginning, but because she talked to the teachers, everything was hunky-dory with the kids, right?
That's what I was told.
And that was the teachers' observations, right?
Correct. I mean, they spend a lot of time with the kids, so I think it's a pretty good, unbiased source of opinion on how they are day to day with their peers and other kids. I think everybody was surprised that suddenly out of the blue, 2 12-year-old girls decide to kill somebody, and they've been planning it for 6 months and nobody saw any of the signs.
Right.
So you would think that at school where you're in day to day with other kids that you would see something if there was an issue.
Okay. Like bringing a weapon to school, playing with blood at school,
Possibly, yes.
a locker full of pictures.
What's the question about the pictures in the locker?
All of the things you pulled from Morgan's locker and took into custody, they were filled with pictures, correct?
I know that there's lots of kids that doodle when they get bored. People have different dark sides. There used to be things, the Texas Chainsaw Murders, Friday the 13th, Eddie Krieger. A lot of those people like that kind of stuff. They doodle about it. They draw about it. I don't know if that's a for sure sign that somebody's going to go and try to kill a classmate.
Okay.
So,
But Diane Geyser told you she was odd, a loner, and not well liked.
correct.
And you had the issue with Anissa needing to reach out to the teachers to gain, even though she was a rule follower and an ambassador for the program, she still needed help dealing with the children within the program, correct?
Correct. I'm not sure what you're trying to ask me, but basically my interview was with 9 people of the staff. None of those 9 people recognized anything that they would thought that the person was going to go and kill somebody, one of their classmates. So that was the purpose of the interview, and nobody had anything that rose a red flag that was outside of the realm of stuff that they handle day to day with other students that caused an alarm for them.
So nobody noticed anything, and that's what you learned.
Correct.
So let's go back to talking about your interview with Morgan. In the beginning, she didn't want to lose Anissa, but by the end, she was saying that she didn't want to see Anissa again, from what I understand.
I think through her interview, she was trying to distance herself from Anissa. She was trying to put all the blame onto Anissa. And I think at the end, she found that it was necessary to separate herself from her because she realized that she was the person blaming her for this.
So you think Morgan wanted to distance herself from Anissa because Anissa was blaming Morgan for this?
No, Morgan was blaming Anissa.
Thank you. And going back again to the teachers at school, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a bit. Anissa was in Flight Academy, correct?
Correct.
Morgan was not.
Correct.
Morgan was in other classes without Anissa.
Correct.
And Anissa's primary classes were within the Flight Academy realm.
Correct.
So when the teachers at Flight Academy would see Anissa, she would not be with Morgan, correct?
Correct.
And they indicated that they really didn't have much of a knowledge of Morgan.
Correct.
And similarly, most of Morgan's teachers didn't know Anissa.
That is correct.
And when you met with Morgan and went through what happened with her, she wasn't extremely forthcoming, correct?
That is correct.
And throughout the time that you were working with her, the primary thing she kept telling you was that this was necessary, correct?
That is correct.
She couldn't tell you why it was necessary.
She only said it because Anissa said it was necessary from the person that she talked to.
And the person that she talked to, were you able to get Morgan to specify who that was?
She didn't know for sure, but I guess from the context of the conversation that she believed it was Slenderman. She said that she never actually had a conversation with him, but it was something that was, I guess I would say, emailed to her or something on the computer. There was never any face-to-face contact.
But there was somehow communication through the computer from Slenderman.
That's what Morgan alleged that Anissa told.
Okay. The other thing, Detective, jumping back to school again, and Morgan. Another issue the teachers noted was that she was keeping company, I think you could say, on the playground with Voldemort and Snape.
I think there was one incident where she was acting like she was one of the characters from Harry Potter, maybe, again, chasing some kids around.
Okay.
The teacher told her to stop, and she stopped, and she didn't do it anymore.
Okay. So she seemed to be responding to the other characters within the story, correct?
Yes.
So she was on the playground and basically on the playground hanging out with Voldemort and Snape.
I think that she was acting like them is the characterization that I recall.
Okay. And again, that would have been one of the things that the teachers noted that other students found might be a little unusual about Morgan.
Correct.
Thank you, Detective. Nothing further.
Any further cross?
No, thank you.
All right, then. Now, there's some exhibits have been referred to. Are we moving those exhibits in?
I would move for the admission of States Exhibits 1 and 2, Judge.
Any objection?
No, sir. And we would be moving for the admission of exhibits that have been testified to so far.
Oh, first I'll receive exhibits 1 and 2. Then, if you would identify those exhibits that you're referring to.
Exhibit A, the school picture of Anissa Weier in 6th grade. Exhibit B, the picture of Anissa, her siblings that were found in the purse. Exhibit C, the phone will of Anissa, leaving all things to her parents. D, the phone Anissa's goodbye note from May 28th, I believe it was, of 2014. The exhibit, we would offer Exhibit F, which is the full statement of Morgan Geyser for the court. We have referred to portions of it. We'd be offering at this point the portions of it that have been used, which I can put on the record in a moment. Item 56, the police inventory of Anissa's Spanish book. Item H, which was item 61 from the police evidence locker. Item I, which is item 62, the Wild Rule notebook. Item J, number 65 from police inventory, the craft. Item K, which was item number 66 of the police inventory, the drawings. Exhibit L, which was fragment 7, the email from Geyser to Weier, proof that Jeff is real, also including the second email referencing the existence of a serial killer in the Milwaukee area, similar to Jeff the Killer. The Exhibit N, the email exchange between Geyser and Weier. Exhibit O, the picture of the purse with the contents inside. Exhibit P, the picture of the kudos bars. Exhibit Q, picture of the peanut butter crispy rice bars. Exhibit R, the gift-wrapped package. Item S, the view into the purse with the knife. Item T, the purse and contents of the evidence view. Item U, Anissa's boot. Item V, Anissa's socks.
Then in reference to Exhibit F, that's the disc of Morgan's statement, you provided the court and the state with an index to the sections, and those are on the disc, and those are the sections you're moving in.
Correct, sir. We used 1, 2, 4, and 5. We have not yet used clip 6, and I'm not sure if we've used the second portion of clip 1.
All right, thank you. I think we should mark this index to the disk as, for our purposes, today as Exhibit F1.
I guess I'm not understanding exactly what Exhibit F is. I thought I heard at one point Ms. McMahon say it was a disk of the entire statement. I don't know if it's a disk of the entire statement or a disk of these portions.
It is a disc of the entire statement. We have not played the full disc.
I understand that the index that we have is then calls out the locations on the meter on the disk as to what portions they played. I'm assuming those are times, actually.
Correct.
Correct. I follow that now.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
So I'm going to have the index marked as Exhibit F1, so we can identify what we are trying to identify.
Certainly.
And then with that being the case, we'll mark that with an exhibit label. Then, what's the state's position on those?
No objection to any of those, Judge.
Okay, I'll receive each of those exhibits. So I'm be clear, I'm receiving exhibit A, B, C, D, F, G, H, K, L, N, O, P, Q, R. S, T, U, V, and F1. So ordered.
I believe it was also I and J. Maybe I missed the court saying that.
Correct.
No, I did not. I and J?
I believe so, sir, yes.
I was item 62.
Yes.
And J is item 65.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll receive those as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, F is the entire disk, correct?
Correct. But F1.
But the only portion we're receiving is that portion that's identified on Exhibit F1 as having been used.
At this time, yes.
I'm not receiving the entire interview.
Well, I'll move for the entire interview to be admitted since Detective Casey has been here and testified and it's marked.
Any objection?
None whatsoever,
All right,
sir.
then the entire disk F is received. We'll receive F1 then as an index to those portions that have been played in the record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So ordered. With that then, Detective Casey's participation, at least today, is complete, true?
Yes, sir.
All right. Is he under subpoena?
He is. I don't know if he's under state subpoena as well.
He is.
Well, I'm releasing him from this subpoena.
Yes.
From the subpoena from Ms. Weier. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Anything today? Do you have further witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Then we've reached the end of our day today for testimony. We'll start again at 8:30 tomorrow morning. At this time, you'll be released back to the jury room, and then you'll return to your place of residence. All right. Thank you. Hand me those exhibits for us, would you? That are behind you. Okay, you may be seated, thank you. Do we have, I see Detective Casey still here. Do you have any exhibits with you? I mean, I didn't see what you all had. Did you leave everything on the?
I have the originals, so should I take them back, or are they gonna be?
Well, no, I don't know, let's leave here what you've got.
I have the originals.
I don't know.
That aren't marked as evidence.
We made copies of the originals so that the police department could maintain the.
Well, what I want to be sure then is that we have, what copy is fine, but I want to be sure that we have then the copy that is, for our purposes, the court exhibit here. I'd prefer people don't walk out with those.
Yes.
So then Detective Casey, what you have, if you have anything in your physical possession right now, are your police department exhibits as originals?
Correct.
All right, very good. Now, we can be sure they're organized. Once exhibits are received, they become they are in the custody of the clerk of court's office. So they should be marshaled together and allow our clerk, Ms. Jacks, to be sure that they're all organized and together. Now, from the Ms. Weier's standpoint, what's the plan for tomorrow?
Detective Fisher, then Detective Trussoni, and let's see. We have a number of other persons, Mr. Crowder, I believe, Mr. Haynes.
Who are those two?
Ms. Crowder was one of the Flight Academy teachers. Mr. Haynes was her primary teacher in 5th and 6th grade. Some of the information about the information.
Is he the math teacher?
Math and other.
Yeah, all right. And what else? Who else? What I want to try and organize is, I want to be sure our days are filled. And today we've had some open time during the course of the trial, and keeping in mind as a courtesy to the jury, I'd like to fill our days as much as we can.
I agree. Dr. Westendorf will also be here tomorrow afternoon.
All right, now, I don't know how long everybody's going to take, but from your standpoint, does that fill the day?
I believe we will have a very full day.
And so by filling the day, I'm looking at least 5 o'clock.
We are trying to make sure we have at least enough people to need to tell people to come back. So
All right, then, if that's tomorrow, that's Wednesday, what about Thursday?
Thursday, then we are anticipating likely Dr. Van Rybrook and Dr. Caldwell. We think, depending on how long Dr. Van Rybrook and Dr. Westendorf take, in case they need to carry over.
No, I understand. So then, in theory, then we'd have 3 witnesses for Thursday.
Yes, sir.
All right, and with the potential to move into Friday.
Right.
All right. Oh, we should keep that timing in mind then. I'll have a set of proposed instructions based upon what I know about the case up to now prepared, and we can distribute those tomorrow. All right, very good. Thank you, good luck, then court will be in recess.